Hey, what's up guys, it's your boy KCM What Ifs. Today we are gonna be reading Naruto, the next god of Shinobi, or what if Naruto was trained by Hiruzen and became the god of Shinobi. So sit back, relax and enjoy. It was a foggy, forested area that Enko chose as the meeting place. It gave a really good cover and it would give Naruto a good view of where Gato was coming, where he was going and any signs of an ambush. She was in a henge, transformation, of the standard Kiri onion uniform, and Naruto had several clones like that as well. It would be an hour and a half before Gato appeared. Walking with him and flanking him from each side were two swordsmen. They had their hands on their blades, but it did not worry her. She stood at the ready just in case he did something stupid. Gato stepped forward and faced Enko. So, you're the leader of these teams that are moving around my land? I didn't expect you to be a woman, Gato said and leered at her. Enko just rolled her eyes behind her henge. You should not underestimate me just because I'm a woman. To answer your question, I am the head commander of those teams. I assume that you know why we are here, Enko said. I heard it was because you're hunting a known criminal from your village. I assure you that there is not one here, Gato said. Then you must take us for fools, Gato, Enko said. She pulled out a contract that she handed to Gato. The little man paled when he saw what it was. Yes, we know that you have hired him for a job, but it does not matter to us. We want the location of Momochi Zabuza. You will hand him over immediately. Now wait a minute. I paid a lot of money for his services and I will not be cheated out of my investment, Gato exclaimed. Perhaps you prefer that Kirigakure no Sato, hidden village in the mist, gets involved with your operations. Technically, that bridge has not been connected to the mainland. We rule the seas, and if you don't wish for some accidents to happen to certain ships like the Yamato, I would be a little more open to negotiations, Enko said. Gato gulped at her declaration. The Yamato was a ship owned by him that did some illegal shipping for him. If it was destroyed, it would be a lucrative loss. He growled at the woman before gathering himself. Fine, you can have him. He cost too much anyway, Gato said. A wise decision. Enko then handed him a piece of paper. You will make sure that he gets to that location and we will do the rest, she said. She made a hand motion before disappearing. Gato wasn't happy, but he didn't need Zabuza or his brat. He rubbed his caste before leaving with his men. When everyone was gone, a figure with a mask appeared. They looked in the direction of Gato before following the onion. Enko and Naruto returned to Tazuna's house. Enko stretched her muscles before dispelling the henge. That was a load off. Well, did you notice anyone watching? Enko asked Naruto. Naruto dispelled his clones and the henge he was under. Someone did enter the field, but they were using the mist as well. They were a lot better than me at staying hidden, Naruto said. Then we can assume that it is this onion that Kakashi's brats told us about. Let's hope that our plan works, Enko said. They were being watched by said onion. After learning about what they planned, he decided to let his master know that Konoha sent backup and they were setting him up. He turned to leave but only got a few yards before his world went dark. He didn't know where he was and he felt the air leave his lungs. He was gasping for air and felt the world go darker. As Enko and Naruto were about to enter the house, they heard a thud. The door opened to reveal Yakumo and Jacken, who were armed. What's going on? Enko demanded. Someone tripped one of my genjutsu traps. There is someone out there, Yakumo said. Enko nodded and made hand gestures to her team. They spread out and made their way carefully to the area where the thud was heard. They arrived to see a body. It was the onion that Kakashi told them about. He was out cold and not moving. Enko checked him and found him to be alive. Naruto removed the mask off his face and Yakumo gasped as who it was revealed to be. Enko turned to her. You know this guy? Enko asked. It's Haku. Both teams were sitting around the table. Their captive was still out cold and unmoving. They were discussing what to do with him. I say we kill him and be done with it. Sasuke said. Really, that's your decision? Did you forget your last encounter with Zabuza? If he has kept this guy around for so long, then he is very important to him. You really want to bring the wrath of one of the members of the greatest swordsman group in Kiri? Jacken asked with a mocking tone. Sasuke glared at him, but Jacken was not impressed. We're not killing him, moron. We're going to use him and let him tell Zabuza that he has been betrayed. The problem we face is that he may tell Zabuza that our operation was a trick. Naruto said. Hey, don't call Sasuke a moron. Sakura shouted. Oh, low down the volume, damn it. We're right in front of you. Jacken shouted at her. Okay, all of you shut up. Enko shouted, ending all arguments. Naruto is right, however. The plan has worked and this young man knows that Gato has betrayed them. We need to convince him that it is in his best interest to help us. Kakashi said. I could use my Sharingan. Nope, you're still not at 100% and I'm not taking care of you. Enko argued. That's when she noticed Yakumo. She was giving the boy a very long stare. Do you have something to add to Yakumo? The Genjutsu user did not answer her, but she then turned to face Enko. Sensei, please give me a chance to talk with him. Yakumo said. What are you thinking, Yakumo? She asked. I can't explain it. I don't think he has the soul of a cold-blooded killer. When I met him that day, I felt a gentle aura coming off him. I believe that I can get him to help us. Yakumo said with seriousness. Enko looked at her student and smiled. You can use the room upstairs. Jacken, take him up there. Jacken nodded and went to help his teammate. Yakumo took a deep breath before dispelling the genjutsu that held Haku. He took a giant breath and quickly took a look at his surroundings. Despite his erratic breathing, he was able to take in everything. He saw that he was tied up and he was in a room. He saw Yakumo and her Konoha Hitai 8 forehead protector. He saw that she was allowing him to get himself in order, so he used this time to gather himself. Once he was in control, he looked at Yakumo. The two stared at each other before he smiled. I would have never expected you to be a shinobi. You seem too feminine and frail, but I guess you are shinobi material after all. Haku said. Yakumo smiled as well. The same can be said of you. When we met, you were gentle. I couldn't believe that someone as gentle as you would be a ninja. Also, I didn't think that someone like you could be with someone like Zabuza. Yakumo countered. It is not so hard to understand. Things in Kirigakure are not like your home in Konohagakure. People like me are hated because of abilities that we have been born with. With my ability, I killed my father. It was because I was different, both me and my mother were. It was Zabuza who gave me purpose and I would die for him. Haku explained. Yakumo looked at him and saw that he was not lying to her. It would be wrong of me to say that I understand you. Despite how things started for me, I was given another chance and have made great friends and reconnected with my family. Yakumo said. They were quiet for a while before she spoke again. What can I do to convince you to help us? I will never betray Zabuza. Haku said with conviction. Even if it was the truth? You saw it yourself. Gato has betrayed you. Yakumo said. His betrayal was because of you and your team's plans. He countered. Perhaps, but it still doesn't mean that he wouldn't have betrayed you later on. Gato does not seem like the type of person who honors deals. Yakumo said with a smile. Her face suddenly turned serious. I know you have witnessed what Gato's corruption has done. You should understand their pain. Yakumo then got on her knees and bowed to him. I am begging you, my shining knight, please help me. Haku stared at the kneeling girl and sported a little blush on his face. Enko watched from the window and could help but smile. Her little kunoichi would become the perfect interrogator, whether she accepted it or not. You sure did take your time, Haku. Zabuza said. I was careless and one of the teams spotted me. I had to lose them before returning. Plus, I had to get more herbs for your injuries. Haku told him. Stop worrying about that, I am fully healed and ready. Now, what did you learn? Zabuza asked. Gato has betrayed us. I saw everything. After the head commander threatened his business, he sold us out. Gato is preparing us for them. Haku said. That little troll, he will regret crossing me. Zabuza growled. He looked at Haku and really bore into him. Is there anything else? It took a while for Haku to answer him. No, Zabuza-sama, there is nothing else. Haku said. Very well then, our target has changed. We move at dawn, so be prepared. Zabuza said. Haku nodded and left to prepare. Zabuza watched him as he left and smirked. Gato was standing among a bunch of thugs and killers. He had just hired these guys for the job that they were about to do. Okay, listen up, you guys are to head for that bridge and take everyone out. I'm going to show these people what happens when you cross me. Zori, Waraji, I want you two to bring Tazuna's daughter with me. I want to watch his face when she dies. Gato said with a smirk. Hey boss, what about those two ninja? Asked one of the henchmen. I'll give him up to those hunters. Maybe that'll teach that punk some respect, he said. So, you want to teach me about respect, do you? A voice said from everywhere. Mist began to fill the room from the windows, covering everyone. They were starting to get frightened and frantic. Gato was shaking like a leaf. Zabuza, he asked meekly. You thought that you could betray me? Very well, I will show you why I am called Kirigakure no Kijin, Demon of the Mist. After those words, all hell broke loose. Kakashi and his team stood at the bridge with Tazuna and his crew. He was back at full strength and was ready for a rematch against Zabuza. He wasn't too confident that Yakumo managed to convince the boy. She explained to them that he was very loyal to Zabuza. He would be prepared for Zabuza in case the boy tricked them. As he was standing guard, he heard someone approach. It turned out to be Naruto, or rather a clone. Everyone looked at him and waited for him to speak. What is Naruto? Kakashi asked. It's over. Gato is dead. He informed everyone. Everyone was shocked at the news. Are you sure about that? Kakashi asked. Come and see yourself, sensei. Naruto said. He ordered his team to stay and protect the bridge while he went with Naruto. It didn't take them long to arrive at the area where a crowd had gathered. Kakashi looked at the corpse and moved to check it. It was definitely Gato. He had his arms, legs and head severed. The cuts were perfect, done with a very large blade. He looked at the clone. Where is your team? He asked. We got someone to take us to Gato's base. The clone said. Kakashi nodded and quickly made his way back to the bridge. Team Enko looked at the scene. It looked straight out of a horror movie. Blood was splattered everywhere, bodies were in two, and some of the bodies had needles sticking out of them. Enko saw that they weren't killing shots but attacks meant to freeze their movements. They walked through the base and just saw more of Zabuza's work. Is it wrong that I'm kind of wet from this? Enko asked. Her team looked at her with their usual expression. Really, this excites you? Jacken asked loudly. What? I haven't interrogated anyone in a while and I forgot my Ika. Don't test me, boy. Enko spat. Why don't you just rape Kakashi? We know that you like him. Naruto said. Please, as if that one-eyed bastard knows what to do with this. Anko said, gesturing to her body. The two boys shook their heads. Hey, what's that? Yakumo asked. They made their way toward the Gato office and saw a large mountain of money. They all looked at it in amazement. Anko saw a note and picked it up. Give this money to the people. I hope to see you again, my lady. Anko read. My lady, who could this be from? They're definitely not speaking about you. Naruto said to Anko. The comment got him drilled. As he laid on the floor, he noticed that Yakumo's cheeks were a little red. Hey Yakumo, are you okay? Your face is kind of red. Yakumo was suddenly the center of attention. Anko had a small smile. I'm guessing that this is from your shining knight? Anko asked with amusement. You were watching us? Yakumo exclaimed. The two boys looked on in confusion. Team Anko, Team Kakashi and Tazuna's family were having a huge dinner. The party from the village had continued on home. When Team Anko returned with the money and told them that it was for the village, everyone began to celebrate. They cheered, cried tears of joy, and the dark clouds lifted over the village. Tsunami created a huge dinner for the shinobi who helped their village. As they ate and drank, the sounds of bells reached their ears. It was the same bells that were set up as an alert system. The shinobi looked at each other before filing out of the house. When they were outside, they immediately went to their weapons. Standing in front of them were Zabuza and Haku. Team Kakashi and Team Anko readied themselves for a fight. Zabuza just looked at them with Haku at his side. He then chuckled at the two teams and relaxed his guard, confusing the two jonin. So you called for backup? The Burakumamba no Konoha, Konoha's Black Mamba, I've heard of you. Your team must have been the reason that Gato decided to betray me. It was a good plan, but kiri onions don't really work in such large groups. Zabuza said. Why are you here, Zabuza? Kakashi asked. I just wanted to meet the team that turned my tool against me. Zabuza said. The way he said the tool really didn't sit well with Yakumo. Excuse me, but Haku is not a tool. He is a person with feelings. How can you treat him as lowly as that? Yakumo growled. Ah, that explains a lot. Anyway, I am no longer your enemy and I have taken my pay, so you don't need to worry anymore. Zabuza said. So you just came to tell us that you're leaving? Anko asked. Not really, Zabuza said. He then pushed Haku toward them. I have no use for an unloyal tool. He isn't registered as a shinobi. Maybe he can be of some use to you, as he has certainly is no use to me. How dare you? Yakumo roared. He has done everything you asked of him. He's killed all for your ambition. He does one good thing and you just discard him like he's nothing. You are nothing but scum, a lowlife who doesn't deserve such loyalty. Zabuza looked at the young woman with narrowed eyes. Anko stood in front of her student and reached for her blade. He just looked at them before scoffing at them. Whatever, I don't really care. Just take him with you, as he has clearly bonded with your student. Zabuza said. As he began to walk, Haku faced him. Zabuza-sama, I am sorry that I have failed you. I know that you will never forgive my actions, but know that I do thank you for allowing me to stand by your side. He said. Zabuza turned slightly at the boy. For now, you live for yourself. You can create your own life in Konoha. Zabuza said. With that, he vanished with the mist. The tense atmosphere was gone and everyone relaxed their guards. Yakumo walked up to Haku and stared at his back. I know that you probably blame me for this, and for that I'm sorry. She told him. While I am no longer of use to Zabuza-sama, I do not blame you for it. I saw how everyone was after we dealt with Gato. I regret betraying him, but he was nice enough to allow me to live my life. Haku said. He turned and faced the group. I hate to impose, but I was wondering if you would allow me to come with you on your way back to Konoha? Sure, why not? If I didn't, your crush over there might just put us in one of her genjutsu. Anko said with a wicked grin. The two teens blushed and Yakumo was glaring at her sensei. Naruto and Jacken decided to pile on. Yakumo and Haku, sitting in a tree. Naruto sang. KSSNG. Jacken sang. First comes love. Then comes marriage. And then comes Yakumo with a baby carriage. Anko, Jacken and Naruto sang. They all fell over with laughter and Yakumo was red in the face. Their laughter died down when they noticed the ghostly image that she was giving off. Not even trying to apologize, her team took off as Yakumo took off after them. Kakashi just smiled at the antics of Anko's team. Team Kakashi and Team Anko with Haku stood with the villagers on the now completed bridge. They had to admit that it was a beautifully built bridge. As everyone said their goodbye and wished each other luck, Naruto was thinking about something. Hey old man, what are you going to call the bridge? Naruto asked. You know, I really don't know what I'm going to call it. Tazuna answered. Why don't you name it after me? Anko asked boastfully. I don't think Psycho Bitch Bridge is a flattering name. Jacken answered. He was rewarded with a foot to the face. We should name it after you guys. You gave us our hope back. Inari said to Naruto. While that would be awesome, maybe you guys should dedicate this bridge to your first hero. Naruto said. You mean Kaiza, don't you? Tazuna said. He was in silence for a while before he spoke again. The Kaiza Memorial Bridge, that doesn't sound bad. What do you guys think? He asked the villagers. Everyone seems to like the idea of the name. Alright then, the Kaiza Memorial Bridge it is. Thanks for the name, kid. Naruto just nodded and saluted the group. The two teams and one passenger began their trek home, waving back to the village. They all wished the teams a safe trip. Unknown to everyone, Zabuza was watching them go as well. He watched as Haku walked with the Konoha teams. Live your own life, my dear friend. Zabuza whispered before vanishing for good. Haku turned to look around as he thought he heard something. He suddenly had a grin on his face but didn't know why. He caught up to the Konoha teams and continued on his way to Konoha to begin his new life. The teams and their guest was another day out of Konoha. Everyone was in separate groups and was enjoying the company. Anko was hanging off Kakashi's back, reading his book with him. Kakashi didn't seem to mind that she was draped over him. In fact, he seems to enjoy it. In another group, Naruto, Jacken, Haku, Yakumo and Sai were talking and laughing. Yakumo would still get teased about her crush on Haku, which made the two blush. The final group was a group of two. Sakura was trying to get Sasuke's attention, but the last Uchiha wasn't paying attention to her. His eyes were focused on the members of Team Anko. He didn't like the fact that this team had come in and messed with his mission. He felt that he lost his chance at activating his eyes, the Sharingan. Instead of getting into a battle of death, he was forced to sit back and watch as this team did his job. He didn't like that they did not instantly respect him. Just like their sensei, they thought that they were above him. Well, he was about to show them that he was the best. He stood up and walked over to the group and stood before them. They all looked at him and wondered what he wanted. He faced Naruto and narrowed his eyes, making the blonde nervous. Anko and Kakashi looked up from their book. Can I help you, Sasuke? Naruto asked nervously. Fight me, Sasuke demanded. Excuse me, he asked in surprise. I said to fight me, Sasuke said with a tone. Naruto looked at his team and at his sensei. Anko stood and walked over to the group. She gave Sasuke a look before turning back to her student. If he wants a fight, then you should give it to him. In fact, let's make this into a taijutsu spar. What do you call Kakashi? We can even bet on it. Enko said. What are the stakes? Kakashi asked. My boy wins, you take me to dinner and do 5 D-rank missions of my choosing. Your boy wins, I'll model something from Ika Ika. Enko said. That sounds fair. This will only be a taijutsu spar. No weapons, no jutsu, am I understood? Kakashi asked. Both boys nodded and prepared to spar. Everyone got a distance away as the two boys stretched. After a few seconds, both boys were ready. Kakashi stood between them. The first to 3 points will be declared the winner. Are you ready? He asked Naruto. The blonde nodded. Are you ready? He asked Sasuke. The black-haired boy nodded. Then, begin, he declared. Sasuke attempted to catch Naruto off guard with a quick jab, but Naruto blocked it and stuck him at his side with a jab on his own. Sasuke winced and backed up. Point, Naruto. Kakashi said. His team cheered while Sakura complained. Sasuke rubbed the spot on his side and glared at Naruto. The two set up again and readied themselves. As soon as Kakashi gave the signal, Sasuke attempted to knock Naruto flat on his ass. The blonde dodged with amazing flexibility. He saw that Sasuke had overreached on a punch and made him pay with a spinning elbow to Sasuke's chest. The last Uchiha was sent to the ground, rubbing his chest in pain. Point, Naruto. Kakashi called out. Hey, that's not fair. Sakura exclaimed. Oh, would you please, shut the hell up? What's he supposed to do, allow him to just hit him? Doesn't say much about his title of Rookie of the Year, does it? Jacken spat. Sakura wanted to say something but she closed her mouth and huffed angrily. Sasuke was instantly on his feet and was breathing hard. He gave Naruto a hard look and readied himself. Naruto followed his movement and prepared himself. When Kakashi gave the signal, Naruto was the one who was the aggressor. Sasuke was blindsided by Naruto's speed. Naruto used a lot of feints to keep Sasuke occupied and ended the fight with a spin kick to Sasuke's jaw. Sasuke hit the ground with a thud. Point and match, Naruto. Kakashi said. Yeah, Team Anko is number 1. Jacken cheered. Sasuke was huffing and puffing. He was red in the face and angry as hell. Naruto was about to help Sasuke up when he saw him doing hand seals. When it ended in the tiger seal, Naruto moved quickly. As Sasuke took a deep breath, Naruto slammed his palm in Sasuke's chest. Sasuke instantly felt something wrong with his chakra as he dropped to his knees. He let out a couple of coughs before glaring up at Naruto. What did you do to me? Sasuke gasped out. That isn't a question that you should be asking. What was up with you attempting to use a katana on me? It was a spar, not a full-on battle. Naruto said with an edge. Sasuke glared at him but he was now facing his sensei. Kakashi gave him a very disappointed look. I think that I will allow that seal that Naruto placed on your chest to stay there until we get home. Afterwards, we are going to have words about your attitude towards losing. Kakashi said. Sasuke looked down to see a seal on his chest and it was glowing. He wanted to demand that the seal be removed but the harsh look that Kakashi gave him shut him up. As Naruto was congratulated by his team, he gave the blonde a hard glare. This glare was not missed by Anko. The purple-haired Jonin did not like that glare. She would make sure that she would talk to Kakashi about it. She didn't need another problem added to his plate. Midoshi sighed as she waited outside the office of the Kazekage. She didn't even know why she was even here. Orochimaru just took her from her training so that she could be one of his bodyguards. She didn't know why Manda dealt with the pale man. As she waited, she felt the presence of some people. She turned to see 3 teens and an adult. She was very curious about the red-haired boy who looked like he hadn't slept in days. They sat down and waited just like she was. She acted like she wasn't listening but wondered what they were talking about. "So, you're finally getting a chance to become a chunin, huh sis?" asked Kankuro. "Yeah, but I wonder what our father wants. Is he really going to send Gaara to Konoha, especially with that guy there?" Temari said. "You will do nothing to stop me. That blonde will prove my existence and nothing will stop me from feeding him to my sand." Gaara said with a warning tone. "Hey, we're just concerned, you know. This guy was able to hold you back for quite a while. Maybe you should let this go." Kankuro said. "Excuse me," Midoshi said, gaining their attention. "I'm curious about the Konohanin that you mentioned. Does he have spiky blonde hair, blue eyes and 3 whisker marks on each cheek?" That agitated the redhead who stood and faced Midoshi. The girl could feel the killing intent coming from him but she was not afraid of it. She just smiled at him, which amazed the others. "So you did meet him. How did he look? Are you looking to stop me too?" he asked in a warning voice. "I don't really need to," she said while standing up. She faced him without fear. "In fact, I'm telling you to leave him alone. He belongs to me." The cork on Gaara's gourd popped off and sand began to pour out. Midoshi just smirked and her eyes flashed. Gaara froze and was suddenly pierced with Midoshi's sword. Blood sprayed out of his head and Gaara's eyes were wide with shock. Gaara gasped when he looked around him. He noticed that there was no blood, no sword and no death. The others looked at Gaara's face and saw fear. "What did you do?" Gaara gasped out. "You never want to mess with someone else's prey and that blonde is my prey. Keep that in mind because if you take him from me, that vision will become a reality very soon," Midoshi said. "Midoshi, I think that will be enough." Everyone turned to see Yondaime Kazekage and Orochimaru step out of the office. "Our business is over and we must return," he said. Yeah, it's about time," Midoshi said. She turned back to Gaara with a smile. "Don't forget, he's mine. Touch him and die." She walked away behind Orochimaru. Gaara growled at the retreating back of Midoshi. He didn't know how but he would make her pay, her and that blonde Konohanin. Team Anko and Team Kakashi stood in front of the Hokage. They had just finished giving their reports and were waiting for what the Hokage had to say. Hiruzen was very impressed with both teams, Anko's team more than Kakashi. The mission was handled without too much bloodshed on their part. He was a little troubled with Sasuke's behavior and it showed that the boy needed to learn that his name would not get him everywhere. "I am glad that the mission was done and that you all arrived back safely. However, I am displeased with the behavior of your team Kakashi. A genin should not be questioning a jonin. Also, I am very displeased that the Rookie of the Year is so petty that he would attempt to use a jutsu just because he was bested by a shinobi that has a year's worth of experience on him." Hiruzen said. "I apologize to you and to Anko for the behavior of my student. I promise that it will not happen again," Kakashi said. "I'm sure that it won't but I am still going to make an example." "Anko, your deal was for 5 D ranks of your choosing?" Hiruzen asked. "I was thinking that it would be beneficial if they do the Capture Tora mission 5 times. It has done wonders for my team when it comes to tracking and subduing," Anko said with a smile. Her team snickered at that. "Add 5 more times to that request as a punishment to the team," Hiruzen said. "But Hokage-sama, that doesn't sound fair at all," Sakura argued. "No, a lesson must be made regarding such behavior. This type of behavior could have gotten you and your team killed. I do not need pettiness among my shinobi," Hiruzen explained. He saw that Sasuke was not pleased with his decision. He released a little killer intent toward the boy. "I would be careful who you glare at, Sasuke. While others may cater to you, I do not. You are a shinobi under my command and you will conduct yourself as a professional. Do I make myself clear?" Yes, Hokage-sama. Sasuke said weakly. Do you have any objections to Kakashi? The Hokage asked. No, sir. We will accept this punishment with no complaints. Kakashi said. Good. Hiruzen said. He then faced Haku. When I received the message from Kakashi, I did a background check on Zabuza's claims. You weren't registered as a shinobi, so I have no problems in letting you stay. My only concern is your attachment with Zabuza, so you will be placed on probation for a period of 2 months. The ANBU will be watching you. I understand, Hokage-sama. Haku said. Do you wish to be a shinobi of this village, Haku? Hiruzen asked. If it isn't too much trouble, I would like to further my skills in medicine. Haku said. That can be arranged. I've heard that you are also skilled in combat, so you could become a combat medic if you choose to. Hiruzen said. If it is okay with you, Hokage-sama, the Kurama clan would like to sponsor his training. Yakumo said. I bet you would. Enko muttered with a smirk. Jacken and Naruto grunted in mirth. Yakumo glared at all of them. Hiruzen didn't even ask, as it was a Team Enko thing. Anyway, you are all dismissed with the exception of Haku. You may take a day or 2 off for your troubles. Hiruzen said. Sasuke was the first to leave, storming out of the office. Everyone else left, leaving Hiruzen alone with Haku. Jacken arrived at his apartment. As he entered, he noticed the seal that was near his door. It was glowing red and he was instantly on edge. He pulled out his Kuzurigama and moved slowly into his home. He looked around for anyone in his home. You can calm down, Jacken. It's just me. A familiar voice said. Jacken sighed and lowered his guard. Why are you in my apartment, Kuma? Jacken asked. It's about Senichi. He said. Jacken's eyes suddenly narrowed and his demeanor got serious. What about him? Jacken asked. He's out of prison and out of Konoha. He's been stripped of his rank and had his techniques sealed. I just thought that you should know. He said. Thanks, but you wasted your time. I don't get a damn about that man and I'm glad that he's gone. Jacken said. Kuma just nodded and stood up. He made his way to the door. He paused for a second and turned his head slightly to look at Jacken. Will you be alright? He asked. You worry too much. I'll be fine. Jacken said. The ANBU member nodded and took his leave. Once the door closed, Jacken stood there in silence. While he did not give a damn about his failure as a father, somewhere deep inside him, he was a little hurt that he did not say goodbye or at least broke into and trashed his apartment as a farewell. He sighed and went to get something to eat in his kitchen. As he entered, he noticed his mail on the counter. He went through it and stopped when he got a familiar letter. The letter was from that place in Otafukugai, homely woman town. That meant that it was from Aiko. She probably received the letter that he sent her and replied. He opened the envelope and pulled the letter out. He opened it and read. Jacken, I was very glad that you wrote me back. I know that it might have been strange getting a letter from a woman you barely know, but you made such an impression on me that I wanted to keep in contact with you. Your sensei was a big help. Anyway, I'm glad that you're doing well. I actually heard about that mission you told me about. I heard that you went up against a dangerous man. I guess that is the life of a shinobi. I am doing well. I won't go into details as I know that you don't respect that. However, I've taken a little vacation of sorts. I will probably travel to Kuni, land of hot water, and enjoy my time off. After that, I guess it is back to work. Sorry, that sounds wrong. I just don't want you to have the impression that we are all like that. Anyway, I do hope that you continue to write to me. I really enjoyed the last letter and I would like to learn more about your life. Until next time, Jacken. Aiko. Jacken didn't know why, but the letter brought a smile to his face. He didn't really know what Aiko's motives were, but he was happy that she cared. It made him regret talking bad about call girls. He put the letter down and went to get a piece of paper. He knew what he wanted to write down. He only hoped that she didn't freak out about it. Team Enko were waiting for their sensei to arrive. They found it kind of strange since she was always here first. At first, they thought that she was about to ambush them, but after 15 minutes, they knew that she wasn't around. She suddenly appeared before them. They all noticed the serious expression on her face. "Okay guys, gather around. I have something important to talk to you about," Enko said. The team gathered and sat down. Enko sat on the ground with them. "I'm not going to beat around the bush," Enko said as she pulled out 3 forms. She handed each of them one. They read it and were surprised by what it said. "This is for the Chunin Senbatsu Shuriken, Chunin selection exam," Yakumo said. "That's right. I believe that you 3 are ready to take this test. I held back because you didn't have the stuff yet," Enko said. "What do you mean?" asked Naruto. "Do you remember our second C-rank mission?" Enko said. They all nodded and understood what she was talking about. "I truly believe that you are ready to take the exams that will be held here in Konoha. This choice is strictly yours and I won't pressure you or allow you to pressure each other. This is your decision. If you believe that you are ready, then sign the form and give it to me. If you feel that you need more time, then take all the time you need. What if we choose to take it?" Jacken asked. "Then prepare for the most brutal training that I have ever put you through. These exams are no joke and you can seriously die if you're not careful. I've grown attached to you brats and I would be really bummed if you were killed," Enko said with a smile. The others smiled as well. "I'll give you guys a free day so you can think about it." They nodded and left the training grounds to consider taking the exam. Midoshi entered the cave where Guren was staying. As she entered, she noticed something was off. She suddenly smirked and pulled out her sword. The boulder to her right suddenly exploded and several tendrils of hair shot right at her. She twisted out of the way of the attack and used her sword to block the kunai that attempted to stab her. She elbowed her attacker and kicked them away. She charged at the attacker but had to stop when she was attacked from all angles by hair. Midoshi danced out of harm's way. While in the air, she aimed her arm forward. "Sanaijishu." Hidden shadow snake hands, Midoshi called out. 4 snakes shot out and ensnared her victim. She pulled them forward with ease. She used the ceiling as a springboard and launched herself at the mid-air target. She drove her blade into them, gaining a gasp. Midoshi then noticed that the person she believed to be Kotoheim was actually a log. "Katan, Kasumi and Byu no Jutsu." "Fire release, mist blaze dance technique," Kajiro called out. Midoshi was covered by a clear mist. She noticed the smell and her eyes went wide. That's when the hidden explosive notes detonated. A huge explosion rocked the cave. As the smoke cleared, a burnt body hit the ground with a thud. Kajiro and Kotoheim came out of their respective hiding places to see what they had done. Suddenly there was clapping coming from behind them. They turned to see Midoshi. very good, you have improved greatly. You do good work, Guren," Midoshi said, turning to her left. Guren just stood there with her arms folded. "It wasn't easy, but they can hold their own against anyone now," Guren said. "Continue the great work. I will need them should I face this one Konoha team at the exams," Midoshi said. "Are you admitting that there is someone out there that can beat you?" Guren said. Midoshi just smirked at her and left the cave. She had another month and a half before the exam began. Naruto stood in an abandoned field and faced a tree. He summoned a clone and held his arm out to him. The clone began to move his hand around his opened hand. He watched as a ball of chakra appeared. The clone dispelled and Naruto charged at the tree. He thrust the ball into the tree and watched as it grinded into the tree. When the technique was finally over, the tree had a hole in it. Naruto watched it with a smile on his face. "That's not bad," a voice said. Naruto turned and faced Jiraiya. "You still haven't mastered it, however." "What are you talking about?" "The damage is similar to what you showed me," Naruto said. "True, but the technique is supposed to be done one-handed, not with help. I'm not saying that you can't use the Rasengan in battle, but you haven't mastered the technique," Jiraiya explained. "Well, it will have to do for now. I need to be prepared for the Chunin Senbatsu Shuriken," Naruto said. "Is that so? Anko is allowing you guys to take the exams?" Jiraiya asked. "Yeah, and she's running us through the ringer. She wants us to be prepared for what's coming," Naruto said. "She's right to do so. These exams are no joke. Just be careful, kid, and watch your team's back," Jiraiya said. "No problems, Ero Sennin, pervy sage. I'm going to ace this exam and become a Chunin," Naruto boasted with confidence. Jiraiya just chuckled at him. Naruto decided to relax as he didn't want to get any injuries in the next 2 days. The Chunin Senbatsu Shuriken was just around the corner and he wanted to be prepared both physically and mentally. As he walked along the streets, he saw something down an alleyway. He moved closer and was shocked to see Suna, Sand, Shinobi. Not only were they Suna Shinobi but the same Shinobi with their unstable brother. He looked on to see that one of them had Konohamaru by the front of his shirt. His 2 friends were scared and Sakura was just standing there. He saw that Konohamaru was about to get punched and decided to intervene. Naruto used the Shunshin, body flicker, to appear before the teenager. He hit a nerve in his hand, making him release Konohamaru. He then caught that wrist and twisted it. He pulled the large teen and spun him to the ground, still holding him in a wrist lock. He made sure that he was facing the blonde as he did not want to get hit from behind. He looked at Konohamaru briefly and faced the girl again. "Are you alright, Konohamaru?" Naruto asked. "Yeah, Naruto-nisan. Where did you come from?" Konohamaru said. "Ninja secret," Naruto stated. He turned his attention to the girl. "So we meet again. You guys just like to cause trouble, don't you? You do know that if your teammate here had struck the kid, then you would have been booted out of here? Messing with the Hokage's family isn't a smart move," Naruto explained. "I told you to just let it go, didn't I?" the girl said with a sigh. "Aren't you going to help me?" the boy exclaimed. "Now, where's your other teammate?" "I know he's here somewhere," Naruto said. He got his wish when the redhead appeared in a swirl of sand. The two stared at each other, ignoring everyone including Sasuke who jumped out of the tree. After an intense stare down, Naruto was the first to speak. "I know that you're here for the Chunin Senbatsu Shuriken, but your teammate here nearly got you kicked out of the village. I suggest that you keep a tighter leash on him," Naruto said. "I will do just that. Now head my message. I will kill you and prove my existence. I do not care about that other one that is after you. I will be the one who kills you," he said. Naruto was a little confused by that. Was there someone else that wanted him dead? He would need to talk to Anko about this. He released the teen and slowly made his way to Konohamaru and his friends. He never took his eyes off the redhead, and the same for him. He slowly led Konohamaru and his friends away. Gaara began to walk away with his siblings following. Sasuke looked at the two and was not really happy. What was their issue? The redhead looked strong and he was making death threats toward Naruto. It also made Sasuke wonder how strong Naruto was. A little pissed at being ignored, Sasuke ran off to get some training in. He needed to be ready for the upcoming Chunin Senbatsu Shuriken. Team Anko walked up the side of the academy instead of entering through the doors. They really didn't have to, but they figured that they should enter the building like ninjas. They arrived on the third floor and made their way toward the main room. They were surprised to see their sensei with a bunch of other sensei. Anko saw them and was shocked. "Wow, I didn't expect you guys to reach up here so fast." Anko said, "We entered the ninja way." Naruto said. Anko just smirked at them and then to the others. She presented her team like they were the best to the other jonin. "Well, I wish you guys luck, but you don't really need it. Watch out for each other and make me proud." Anko said. "Hi sensei," they said and entered the main room. Once inside, they picked a spot in the room so that they could see who came in. They waited and watched as the teams came filing in. Team after team filed into the room and Yakumo narrowed her eyes. "This is way too much competition. I was sure that the examiners would have had genjutsu traps laid out around the building." Yakumo said. "It looks like someone may have spoiled the surprise." Jacken said. That's when they saw Team Guy enter the room. They saw them and gave them a nod. They nodded back and picked a spot. The next familiar team they saw was the Suna siblings. Gaara and Naruto locked eyes before they moved to a different spot in the room. "It seems that he hasn't heeded my warning. I will have to do something about that," a female voice said. Naruto noticed her voice instantly and pulled out his staff. The end of it was right in her face. Some turned to see what the commotion was about. A dark chuckle escaped the female's lips before she removed the hood to reveal Midoshi. "It seems you recognized my voice. So, you're the one that Gaara told me about? I didn't expect you to hold a grudge," Naruto said. "You think that I'm out to kill you?" "Oh, perish the thought of Naruto-kun," Midoshi said. That got Naruto to blink owlishly at her. "Why would I want to kill you when you are so interesting? That power of yours, I don't think I've been so overwhelmed in my life. I need you alive so that I can defeat that power of yours." Naruto didn't like the way she sent that and narrowed his eyes on her. "You don't know what you're asking for, Midoshi," Naruto said seriously. "Oh, I know what I want, Naruto-kun, and I will get it. Just survive long enough to have our rematch. I will be waiting," Midoshi said and made her way past them to go to her team. Naruto relaxed a little as Yakumo and Jacken flanked him. "I know that this sounds ridiculous, but I could have sworn that she was flirting with you," Jacken said. Yakumo looked at him with annoyance. "That's what's going through your head? You're not worried at all about the fact that Midoshi is here and may want Naruto's life? Let's not forget the psychotic redhead that also wants our teammate dead," Yakumo said. "I'm not trying to sound insensitive, but it looked like she was flirting with him. You guys kind of agree with me, right?" Jacken asked a couple of Taki genin. "He has a point. The way she kind of walked away wasn't just for show," the genin said. Jacken gave Yakumo a look who just sighed at him. Naruto chuckled at their antics until something got his attention. He turned to see a teenager with one of the genin who graduated 6 months ago. He was holding a card and facing Sasuke. The reason this got him interested was because he heard his name called. Uzumaki Naruto, age 13, rank genin. He is a member of Team 13, teammates Kurama Yakumo and Watanabe Jacken, Sensei Mitarashi Anko. They have quite a mission record with 50 D-rank missions, 3 C-rank missions and 2 of them got bumped up to B-rank. They have done a B-rank mission and an A-rank mission. It says here that they were credited with Gato's removal. His taijutsu, ninjutsu and bojutsu are really high while his genjutsu is unknown. He is also very skilled in fuinjutsu and kekai ninjutsu. On a special note, he was trained at an early age by the Sandaime Hokage and has been taught by the Gamasenin, Toad Hermit, Jiraiya. "Wow, this guy sounds like he's no joke," the teenager said. Team Anko narrowed their eyes on the boy. How in the hell did he get that information? Jacken whispered. Yeah, only a select few knows about my training with the old man or Erosenin, pervy sage. Naruto said. Also, to have such detail of your mission history is very suspicious. No genin should have access to that information. Yakumo added. What do you think we should do? Asked Naruto. They ignored the small fight that happened, which put Kabuto on the ground. There was a sudden explosion in front and everyone paid attention. When the smoke cleared, Team Anko was white as a sheet. In the front of the room was the head of the Konoha Gaman/Jinmon Butai, Konoha Torture and Interrogation Force, Marino Ibiki. Holy shit, we are fucked. We are so fucked. Jacken muttered in fear. He didn't mutter it low enough as it caught the attention of one of Ibiki's people. He informed Ibiki, who faced the team. Well now, if it isn't Team Anko. Ibiki said. He sent some killer intent toward them, making them gulp in fear. You and I have some unfinished business. The team gulped and cursed their sensei for putting them in this mess. Anko sneezed and rubbed her nose as she sat in the Jonin lounge. Kakashi looked at her. Are you getting a cold? He asked. Nah, it's probably my brats. I usually sneeze when they curse my name or something. I wonder what I did now, she asked with confusion. Maybe it's because the examiner of the first stage is Ibiki. Asuma said with mirth. Oh, I forgot he was the first examiner. I knew I forgot to warn the guys. Anko said. She then shrugged it off. I shouldn't be too worried. Ibiki won't do anything too painful to them. I'm sure that they're fine. Naruto, Jacken and Yakumo couldn't wait for the first stage to be over. Each of them was watched by the examiners and Ibiki. Sometimes, the examiners were hitting them with a dose of killer intent. They each cursed their sensei for causing this. As they looked at the test, they each got the meaning of it within several minutes. While they could answer a few of the questions, but to get a good score, they would need to cheat. The question was how. Naruto went into his pocket when no one was looking. He pulled out a couple of pebbles and moved them around in his hand. He launched a pebble at an aim genin, who stood and looked around the room with a glare. He caught the attention of the examiners and Naruto threw another pebble, this time at an examiner. The man let out a string of curses and glared at the room. Naruto caused the sight of Kiba and aimed his shot. With a flick of his wrist, he launched a pebble right to the side of his head. Kiba looked furious and saw a Kusa genin give him a dirty look. Assuming that it was him, Kiba launched himself at genin and a fight broke out. Team Anko moved quickly. Naruto noticed that one of the genin was actually a chunin in disguise. He knew the guy as he had pranked the guy during one of Anko's missions. He quickly took his paper and switched it with his. Yakumo did the same, using a genjutsu on the nearest person to her, which happened to be Sakura. Jacken just copied Lee's answers, which he got from Tenten. They managed all this within the time it took the examiners to stop the fight. After the fight and the time limit, Ibiki caught the room's attention. Okay, pencils down. It is time for the final question. Ibiki said. Before we begin, there are some rules. The first rule is that you must choose to answer the question or not. What kind of rule is that? Temari exclaimed. It means that if you do not answer the question, then your points go to 0. You fail and your team leaves with you. Ibiki said. This caused outrage among the group. Ibiki ignored them and spoke again. Another rule, if you choose to take the question and get it wrong, then you will never get another shot at the Chunin Senbatsu Shuriken, Chunin selection exam. What type of rule is that? You can't make that type of decision. Kiba shouted. That's where you're wrong. Inside this room, I am the law. You either get with that or you can leave. Those are your only two options. So, are you ready for the final question? Ibiki asked with a smile. He watched as several genin stood and walked out of the room. He saw that a few looked ready to quit, but what really caught his attention was Anko's team acting so relaxed. He glared at them and wondered what was so relaxing. "You three," getting Team Anko's attention. "You seem pretty relaxed for such a huge decision hanging over your heads." "I'm not really relaxed, but I've been taught not to show your hand. Besides, I'm not backing down just because you're in charge," Naruto said. "Yeah, if becoming a Chunin was easy then we wouldn't need such a test. So bring on this final question. I don't care if I get it wrong or not," Jacken said. "As Chunin, we will have to make such decisions and we will have to live with it. Wrong or right, I will stand by my decisions and my teammates," Yakumo said. Ibiki looked at this team and had to admit that Anko had a wonderful team of genin. He looked at the others. "Does anyone else feel the way that this team feels?" Ibiki asked. Only a few looked convinced by what this team said. "Very well, the first stage of Chunin Senbatsu Shuriken is now over." "Say what now?" "What about the 10 questions?" Jacken asked. "There was never a 10th question," Ibiki answered. Everyone looked at him and the examiners with shock. "Are you telling us that you mentally scarred us and it was for nothing?" Sakura asked. "Yes," Ibiki answered. "You are a sick son of a bitch," Naruto said, getting the agreement of most of the room. Ibiki ignored them and began to speak. "The object of this test was to see how well you can gather information. Did you really believe that no one would notice the use of dojutsu, animals or puppets? Those who were eliminated would have been killed on the spot by how bad they were getting their information. The 10th question was just to see if you have the stuff to be Chunin. As a Chunin, you will be given a more difficult mission. Some of those missions, your life would be in great danger and you have to make a decision." Ibiki suddenly removed his bandana, allowing everyone to see his many scars and holes in his head. "Depending on your choice, you make it in the service of your village. Never forget that," he said and placed his bandana back on. As he was about to speak again, something coming toward the window caught his attention. It smashed through one of the windows and stopped in midair. It began to unwrap itself. 2 kunai hit the ceiling and a banner appeared. On it were the words, "The protector of the second stage, the sexy and single, Mitarashi Anko." The purple-haired ninja stood and gave everyone a menacing stare. "This isn't the time to be cheering. You little bastards belong to me now," Anko shouted. Everyone looked at her like she was crazy. Suddenly, Anko replaced herself with a chair as a staff, a sickle and a few shuriken came flying at her. She stood on one of the tables and grinned at the 3 genin who attempted to kill her. "Ah, are you guys mad at me? You could have warned us that he was the examiner of the first stage," Jacken roared. "You're still alive, aren't you?" Anko asked. Her students just glared at her. She chuckled until her eyes landed on Midoshi. The young girl gave her a wave and smile, which made Anko frown. Before she could do anything, she was interrupted by Ibiki. "You're early, again," Ibiki said with a frown. Anko said with a shrug. She looked around and noticed quite a lot of people. "You allowed 27 teams to pass. There are quite a few strong ones in here," Ibiki said. "Is that so? Well then, let's see if they are as strong as you say," Anko said with a sadistic grin. She faced the group of hopeful Chunin. "Alright maggots, follow me to your next test. If you think that Ibiki was scary, you're going to love what I have in store for you." Everyone was put off by the chuckling of the deranged-looking Jonin, with the exception of her team and Midoshi. Ibiki chuckled as Anko led the teams out of the room. He was going to let the Jonin in the lounge who passed and who failed. As he made his way out, he saw a piece of paper under one of the exam papers. Curious, he made his way over and picked the paper up. He unfolded it and read the message. "Ibiki-san, please check on Yakushi Kabuto. He has information that he should not have. He may be a spy or you may have a leak. He looked at the note and back at the spot where he found it. That was where one of Anko's brats sat. This was a serious accusation and he needed to check up on it. He quickly left to go and speak with the Hokage. Anko stood in front of the Chunin hopeful and faced all of them with a smile. She had secretly sent a note to the Hokage about Midoshi's involvement in the exams. That could only mean that Orochimaru was somewhere in the village. She couldn't search for him now, but she would soon. Okay maggots, welcome to the second part of the Chunin Senbatsu Shuriken, Chunin selection exams. I like to call this place my and my team's home away from home. This is the Dainjuyin in Shujo, 44th training ground, or as I like to call it the Shur no Mori, Forest of Death. Anko began to speak. Why do you call it that? Asked Ino. You'll soon find out why. I would like to keep that a surprise for you all to see. Anko said with a vicious grin. As she was about to continue, Sakura decided to speak up. Wait a minute, you said that this is your team's training ground, she asked. So? Anko asked. Does that give you a huge advantage? That's cheating. Sakura exclaimed. Team Anko watched as Anko looked at the girl with a glare. Anko was not happy and walked up to her. Sakura gulped under her stare and felt weak in the knees. Do you realize how much of an embarrassment you are right now? You're complaining about an unfair advantage? We're shinobi. We live a life of unfair advantages. Hell, we strive for unfair advantages. You are a kunoichi of Konohagakure, so act like it. If you're so worried about it, then leave. You are a disgrace, acting like a child. Anko stated loudly. Sakura seemed to shrink into herself and the looks she was getting from the others only embarrassed her further. Anko straightened up and looked at everyone else. Does anyone else have a problem with my team's advantage? Are there any more bitches within this group of wannabe Chunin? No ma'am. Everyone exclaimed. With a final glare to Sakura, Anko walked back to the front of the group. She faced everyone again. Now, I will explain the point of this exam. Anko pulled out 2 scrolls, a white one and a brown one. In my left hand, I hold a scroll with the label, Heaven. In my right hand, I hold a scroll with the label, Earth. Each of you will get a scroll, one with Heaven or one with Earth. Your objective is to gain both scrolls and make your way to the tower that is at the center of this training ground. Anko said. So it's like a capture the flag type of mission? Asked Midoshi. Something like that. Since half of you will be holding the Heaven scroll and the other half will be holding Earth, you will have to fight each other to get it. As Chunin, you will have to get information by force and return it back to your village while others are after you. If you can't, then you will die. Which reminds me, Anko made a motion and several Chunin who had papers. These are waivers that you may choose to sign. This dissolved Konoha from any deaths that happen within the forest. Anko explained. Some of them looked a little worried about that but no one left. So how long is this exam? Asked Jacken. The exam ends in 5 days. Anko informed them. 5 days? What about food? Exclaimed Choji. There are a lot of animals who can hunt and eat. There are also some plants that are edible. Anko said offhandedly. Do you have any advice? Asked Yakumo. Just one. Don't die, she exclaimed. Hiruzen couldn't believe the trouble that was brewing in just one day. He had just gotten Anko's message about Midoshi. He still did not have too much info about the girl but he could do nothing about her. Otokage, while new, had permission to compete in the Chunin Senbatsu Shuriken. To pull her out to question her, would cause all types of internal problems for Konohagakure and Hai no Kuni. That was something he was not willing to get into. As long as the exams were going on, she was protected. Then Ibiki came in and told him about an accusation that was made by one of the Chunin hopefuls. Apparently, there was a leak within his office. A genin was able to gain information that he was not supposed to have. He checked the name Yakushi Kabuto and did find it suspicious that he had participated in 7 exams and always forfeited after the second exam. Sure, he could have gotten the information after all those exams, but that just couldn't be. He launched an investigation into the boy and hoped that he wasn't a spy. He released a sigh and leaned back in his chair. He wondered what else could happen today. He heard a knock on his door and gave them permission to enter. He cursed mentally as he saw his rival enter his office. He could only wonder what Danzo wanted now. "Hello, old friend. What can I do for you today?" Hiruzen asked. "I heard that Orochimaru might be within the village," Danzo said. "Nothing is confirmed, but I have been informed of that girl participating in the exams," Hiruzen said. "Are you sure that it is wise to allow her to continue? Her objective includes your student who is also in the exams," Danzo said. "Naruto can handle himself. I also trust his team to watch his back as we did during the wars," Hiruzen said. "You are not handling this seriously, Hiruzen. I also thought it was idiotic that we allow other villages into ours, but you are risking the life of our weapon and placing your trust in that woman," Danzo said. "I have warned you before, Danzo. He is not a weapon and you will never refer to him as such in my presence again. Also, I trust Anko much more than you do. She has raised this team to be one of my best. I dare say that they can even surpass my team without falling to the events that led to 2 of them leaving. I cannot touch Midoshi because she is protected by the guidelines that make up the exams. Until they are over, I can do little," Hiruzen said. "I still see that you are too soft, Hiruzen," Danzo said. "And yet, I was chosen and not you. Do you wish to know why?" Hiruzen asked. He watched as Danzo's lone eye narrowed. He just turned and left the office without another word. He walked out of the tower and made his way to his home. Once home, he tapped his cane and a shinobi appeared. "Danzo-sama," the shinobi said and bowed. "I want you to send a team into the Sho no Mori and bring a girl named Midoshi here. Capture her team as well, including the Jonin sensei," Danzo ordered. The shinobi bowed and vanished. Danzo just sat and waited. If Hiruzen wasn't going to do anything, then he would, as it was to protect the great tree that is Konoha. Naruto, Jaken and Yakumo were making their way to a familiar place within the forest. It was somewhere that they could rest and plan their opening move. As they moved along, Naruto suddenly felt something. He turned to his team and did some signs. "We got a tail." 3 kunoichi, Takigakure symbols move like a complete unit. Dressed like Anbu, strapped with weapons. Naruto signed. "They must be thinking about taking our advantage away. What's the plan?" Jaken signed. "We lure them into a trap. I can use my clone technique and a genjutsu to tire them," Yakumo said. "Let's lead them to that area where those spiders are. You know how they are." Naruto signed. "That's kind of cruel, isn't it?" Yakumo signed. "Don't worry about that. We aren't going to let the spiders kill them. So are we in agreement?" Jaken asked. They nodded and began to make their way to the spider's nest. They were followed by the 3 Takigakure kunoichi. Yakumo did some seals and did her jutsu. Oboro Bunshin no Jutsu. Hei's clone technique, 3 clones appeared that looked like them. The originals ducked and covered while the clones went forward. They watched as the 3 Takigakure girls flew past them. They waited a while before following them. Yakumo kept up the technique as they followed the 3. They reached the spider's nest, but they would not know about it as Yakumo did another set of seals. Megan, Kokoni Arezu no Jutsu. Demonic illusion, false surroundings technique. Instead of the nest, the area looked like a simple open field. When Yakumo's clones landed, that's when the three attacked. Katan Renki Jutsu, Karura. Fire Release Cooperation Technique, Garuda, they all spat out streams of fire that combined and formed a dragon. The dragon crashed down on the clones, burning the area. The three ended the jutsu and looked over the area. The one with silver-gray hair had an evil smirk. I guess that they weren't as tough as we thought, she said with amusement. The other two chuckled with her. That's when the fire died down to reveal that Team Anko was not harmed. They were shocked and confused until a long and sticky substance shot through one of Team Anko and wrapped around the silver-haired Kunoichi. She screamed as she was pulled toward the ground. The other two made a move to help before they were attacked as well. They were gripped with fear when they realized that they were being attacked by some big damn spiders. Yakumo dropped her genjutsu and clone technique to show them where they were. They screamed some more as some more spiders were coming out of the burning nest. Hey, you guys look like you need some help, Jaken's voice shouted. They looked up to see the team unharmed. You bastards! How did you know? Shouted the silver-haired Kunoichi. I don't think we'll tell you. How about you tell us what type of scroll you have? Jaken asked. Screw you, shouted the brunette. Have it your way, but you should know that the web that they are wrapping you with will suffocate you. Once you're no longer breathing, they will eat you, not to mention the venom that is running through your system when they bite you. You must be feeling pretty tired, right? Naruto informed them. They were feeling the venom of the spider and were losing consciousness. Please, please, help us. One of them begged. What's your scroll? Demanded Jaken. Heaven. The silver-haired Kunoichi said. With that said, Naruto did some seals. Doton, Yomi Numa. Earth Release, Swamp of the Underworld, Naruto said. He created a muddy bog, which made some of the spiders sink into the ground. Each team member jumped down and used the Suimen Hoko no Gyo, water surface walking practice, to stay on top of the muddy water. They grabbed the Kunoichi before fleeing the area quickly. They knew from experience that the spiders would be pissed that they lost their lunch. They got pretty far before stopping to rest. The three Kunoichi were out cold, the effects of the venom taking effect. They cut what webbing was on them and searched them from the scroll. They found it and they were all smiles. We are the greatest. We got the scroll we needed, now we can head to the tower, Naruto said. I think that we should wait until nightfall before we do that. It would be easier to stay hidden at night, Jaken suggested. We can also use the forest as cover as we move. I agree with Jaken on this, Yakumo added. Hey, I'm not going to argue. Jaken is the hunter of the group, Naruto said in agreement. Okay, let's get these guys to the river and hide them. They should wake up by nightfall and we would be long gone by then, Jaken said. They picked them up before making their way toward the river. Anko was practicing her sword movements. She didn't want to let up on her sword training as she was advancing in the Odori Kanohoryu, dancing tree leaf style. Right now, she is mastering the Yanagi, willow, technique and is getting pretty good at it. She was preparing to do it again when someone appeared before her. She turned and recognized the guy as Mizuku. Anko, you need to come and see this. We have a situation, Mizuku said with urgency. Anko sheathed her sword and followed him. She arrived where Izumo and Kotetsu were waiting. She walked up to them and waited. So, what's up guys? The two moved out of the way and showed her what they found. She looked at the bodies with shock. Izumo showed her some files. We checked it out. This is the team from Sunagakure. What's wrong with this picture is that this team is supposed to be in the forest. I saw them to the gate myself, Izumo reported. Anko didn't answer him and continued to watch the bodies that had no faces on them. She knew of only one person who knew how to do such a thing. She might have been a changed person since becoming a Jonin instructor, but that man was still the bane of her existence. She still had that drive to make him pay. Anko turned to Mizuku. I want you to get to the Sandaime and tell him that Orochimaru is in Konoha, disguised as a Kusa Genin. Go now. Anko ordered, and Mizuku left via Shunshin. She turned to Izumo and Kotetsu. I need you to get 2 squads of the ANBU and send them into the forest after me. They nodded and were gone. Anko turned toward the forest. I don't know why you're here, but you won't be leaving here unhurt. It's time that we settle things, Orochimaru. The Konoha Genin's head hit the ground with a thud. Midoshi flicked the blood off her sword before sealing it. Kotoheim walked over to her, as did Kajiro, who was wearing the face of one of the genin that they just killed. In Midoshi's hand was an earth scroll. She was about to pocket it and make her way to the tower when she felt something in the air. You can come out, Midoshi said. She waited as 5 men in masks surrounded the group. Midoshi looked at them and smiled. Well now, what do we have here? Midoshi, Kajiro, and Kotoheim looked at the 4 men that surrounded them. Midoshi held a small smirk as she was curious as to who they were and why they were here. She could tell that they were not regular Konoha shinobi. They seemed to have a purpose for her and her team. So, what can we do for you gentlemen today? Midoshi said. You are to disarm yourselves and come with us. The man said. She watched as they reached for their weapons. And if I refuse? Midoshi asked. You will be coming with us. It depends on your how. The man said. Kotoheim and Kajiro looked ready to deal with them, but Midoshi held her hand up. No, you guys make your way back to our camp with the scroll. I will deal with them, she said. The 2 looked ready to refuse, but they started to feel the air shift. They got scared and made their way out of the area. One of the shinobi attempted to stop them but suddenly found their head removed from their body. The other 3 removed their weapons and faced the young woman. She looked at them with a bored look. I really don't know why you Konohanins are here. I don't really care who you really work for because I know it isn't the Hokage. However, you are attempting to stop me from getting what I want, and I will not allow that to happen. It's time I show you what type of an apex predator I am. Midoshi said and unleashed her killing intent, freezing them in their tracks with just a glance. 2 of them were able to get out of her gaze as the 3rd was run through their chest by Midoshi's hand. She threw the body away as she watched the other 2 begin to do hand seals. Katan, Ryuka no Jutsu. Fire release, dragon fire technique. Bodo were surrounded by fire, and several flames that took the shape of dragons attacked Midoshi. She skillfully dodged and avoided the attack and rushed at the 2 with a smile. Disengaging their techniques, they launched shuriken at her. Midoshi stopped and held her arms out. Saniai to Jashu. Many hidden shadow snake hands, she called out calmly, and an army of snakes shot forward. Some caught the shuriken while the rest went to the 2 shinobi. They cut through the snakes with their tanto, but this proved to be a mistake. Midoshi appeared from within the army of snakes and wrapped around one of the men. She quickly snapped their neck and at the same time pulled out a kunai and stabbed it into their forehead. She stood up straight and faced the last man. She was impressed that the man was not running away and had his tanto in an attack position. Midoshi summoned a snake out of her arm and held it. It then transformed into a sword. The blade was beautiful with a red and yellow hilt. It gleamed in the moonlight as Midoshi held it above her head. She brought it to her side, and with a flick of her wrist, the blade began to move like a snake, rippling at a high speed. She smirked at him and readied herself to attack. The man dug in as Midoshi charged at him. Through the night sky, no scream was heard, only the tearing of flesh. Guren walked around the village without a care. She wasn't scouting or anything, as it would be very soon when the village would be burnt to the ground. She was trying to remain casual, but it was beginning to become very hard with her tail on her. She noticed it about 5 minutes ago when she stepped outside of her hotel room. She didn't know why they were following her, but if they thought that she was going down without a fight. She decided to stop playing this cat and mouse game. She turned into an alley and made her way to a building that was abandoned. She walked into the building and made her way upstairs. When she arrived on the second floor, she found herself confronted with her tail. She looked at them with a sly smile. "So, you've decided to stop playing as well? Well boys, what do you want from me?" Giran asked. "Under orders from our lord, you are to come with us," the leader said, and they removed their blades. "On whose orders?" "Certainly not the Sandaime Hokage," Giran mocked. They didn't say anything and rushed to Giran. Giran just stood waiting as 2 blades came down on her. She didn't cry out, only grinned at the 2 as she broke into crystal particles. The 2 were shocked by this, and they were then suddenly attacked by multiple projectiles that came from under them. They were both filled with holes and fell to the ground dead. Under the floor, Giran waited until she saw small drops of blood come from above. She smirked and dispelled a green snowflake-looking mirror. She watched out of the building and made her way back to speak with Orochimaru. Anko's search led her deep within the forest. She managed to pick up her sensei's trail and followed it. It wasn't long until she caught up with him. She caught the man's attention and snarled at the smirk that was on his face. Well, my dear Anko, you have grown into a beautiful young woman," Orochimaru said mockingly. Anko calmed herself and glared at him. "Orochimaru of the Densetsu no Sannin, the legendary 3 ninja, you are wanted for crimes against Konoha. Come peacefully or I will have to use force," Anko said. "Why is Anko so cold? No kind words for your dear sensei?" Orochimaru asked with a little disappointment. Anko didn't say anything and pulled out her jiang. She got into a fighting stance and waited. Orochimaru just chuckled at her. "So you took up the blade? Are you any good with it?" Anko disappeared and reappeared with her blade just missing Orochimaru's forehead. She spun around and attempted to slice Orochimaru in 2. Orochimaru flipped out of the way. Anko dug her sword into the large branch and kicked up pieces, which were thrown in Orochimaru's face. Orochimaru moved to his left to avoid the stab to his throat. Anko pulled it out and got some distance from him. She did some hand seals and took a deep breath. Katan, Hozenka no Jutsu, Fire Release, Phoenix Sage Fire Technique. Anko shouted and spat out several medium-size fireballs at him. Orochimaru circled the tree like a snake while dodging the fireballs. He then launched a snake at Anko, which wrapped around her neck and began to squeeze. She gasped before dissolving into water. Surprised, he was hit by a torrent of water that came from his left. He landed on a branch with a thud. He quickly moved as Anko appeared and drove the blade where he just was. Anko continued her assault on Orochimaru, who just dodged her attacks. She watched as he ducked behind a tree. She hit the tree with the flat of the blade. It bent and managed to catch a bit of Orochimaru, if the small bit of blood was any indication. She pulled her blade back and thrust it into the tree. She heard the sound of her blade piercing through flesh. She waited for a while when 4 snakes came from behind the tree, each having a blade sticking out of their mouths. Anko quickly pulled her blade free and began to parry the blades. With quick movements, she served the heads of snakes and was at the ready. She spun and deflected a kunai but could not block the kick to her gut. She slid across the branch before coming to a stop. She faced her former sensei and glared at the mocking smile on his face. She took a deep breath and began to wave her sword around. Orochimaru was amused until he saw multiple images of her blade. He waited and raised his arm. He grabbed Anko's wrist and flipped her onto her back. Konoharyu Yanagi, Leaf Style Willow, is a pretty impressive technique you learned from Anko-chan. It seems that you have gotten stronger. Orochimaru said. Enko growled but then smirked at him. He was suddenly struck by several snakes that came out of her sleeve. He released her and Enko did another group of hand seals. Futon, Detapa. Wind release, great breakthrough, Enko shouted and blew a strong chakra-enhanced wind which connected with Orochimaru. He was sent into a tree with some force and he slumped down onto a branch. He then gasped when Enko ran him through with her sword. She twisted it, making sure that he would bleed out faster. When she looked at him, she was shocked to see him smile at her. That's when he melted into mud. Damn it! Come out here, you coward! Enko roared. Orochimaru just smirked and decided to make her feel pain before engaging her again. He did a seal to activate the Ten no Juin, cursed seal of heaven, that was on her. After a few seconds, he was surprised to see her still standing. He focused a bit more of his chakra but she was not writhing in pain like she was supposed to. That little bit of chakra alerted Enko to his location and she charged at him. Orochimaru moved faster and slammed into her. She hit a branch with a thud and was held down by Orochimaru's foot. He took a kunai and cut off a bit of her clothes to see the curse mark. What he saw made him very curious as another seal was over his. Well now, what type of seal is that? Orochimaru asked. It's a brand new seal from Jiraiya-sama. You like it? Enko asked mockingly, which made the Sannin dig his foot into her some more. I think not. I know Jiraiya's work and this is not it. So whose work is this? Orochimaru asked her again. Your mama and she told me to tell you that she's very disappointed in you. Enko spat. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes and placed more pressure on her gut. You test my patience. Now tell me, whose seal is that? Orochimaru asked loudly. He then heard something coming at him and he moved out of the way. He saw that it was a chain that was attached to a fist-size ball. As he was in mid-air, he was suddenly consumed in darkness. He looked up to see several black swords appear. He tried to dispel the genjutsu and found that he couldn't. The swords dived at him and looked ready to skewer him. He unleashed a large amount of chakra to free himself from the genjutsu. When he looked around, he saw that Enko was gone. I don't know who you are but I will not forget this. Orochimaru said to no one. He melted into the tree, knowing that the Anbu would have felt his chakra. After a few minutes, Yakumo released the genjutsu that she placed after casting the first one. She looked around and could not find any trace of the person who had broken her genjutsu, a jutsu that took a lot of chakra to break out of. Seeing that the coast was clear, she looked at her sensei that was taking care of Naruto and Jacken. Enko took a few breaths of air before facing her team. Have I told you guys how much I loved you? Enko asked. Not really. Jacken answered. Good, I ain't going to start now. Enko said with a sigh. The team just chuckled and prepared to move out with their sensei. Enko was being carried by two clones, which were holding a man-made stretcher. She wasn't hurt anymore but who was she to stop a free ride? Her team was in a classic position that she taught them when moving with an injured person. As they moved, they came across a scene that made them stop. Enko looked up from her position. What's going on? Why did you guys stop? Enko asked. Sensei, you've got to see this. Yakumo said. Enko got off the stretcher and stood. She walked over to what they were talking about and narrowed her eyes. There were 4 bodies on the ground. They were brutally killed by what she saw. She saw that they were Anbu but she then looked closer at the mask. They were not standard Anbu masks that she knew. She looked at Jacken and showed him the mask. He got the question and shook his head. She pocketed the mask and looked at the team. We're moving toward the tower and we're moving fast. We'll use the trees and we won't stop until we get there. Enko said. Hi, they said, and they took off. Midoshi's eyes stopped glowing and she had a grin on her face. She had just seen her prey enter the tower, which was very pleasing to her. She was a little worried that it would take them so long, seeing that Anko was their teacher. Whatever the case, she was happy to know that they made it to the tower. She decided to get some rest but was interrupted by another serpent. Apparently, Orochimaru had called a meeting. She pressed for more and learned that Guren was attacked as well. She decided that she would not ignore this summons and left via Shunshin. Hiruzen entered the office that was in the tower. He was called by the ANBU after Anko and her team needed to see him. Usually this meant that they did something bad again, but the seriousness of the tone was something that he could not ignore. He entered the office and the team was waiting for him there. The only one who looked roughed up was Anko. Her team looked fine. He could only wonder what they wanted to tell him. I rushed over on your request, Anko. What do you have to report? Hiruzen asked. I assume that you got my message, Hokage-sama? Anko asked. Yes, and I'm a little surprised at your actions, Anko. I thought that you had gotten over that. Hiruzen said. I understand, but knowing that my old sensei infiltrated the exam, I felt that I must act. Anko said. That explains how he broke out of your genjutsu, Yakumo. Naruto said. Hiruzen looked at the team then back at Anko with a stern glance. She understood why she was getting the look. They saved me from my sensei. They did not engage him, I wouldn't allow them to. He was very interested in the seal that was placed over my old mark as he could not activate it. He was very interested in it. He does not know who it was that placed it. I mentioned Jiraiya, but he did not believe me. Anko said. Either way, it is good that he does not know who did it. We would not want him to come searching for that person. Hiruzen said while looking at Naruto. He turned back to Anko. So you engaged him and were saved by your team. Was that all you needed to speak to me about? No, Anko said and reached into her jacket. She pulled out a mask and handed it to Hiruzen. When he saw it, he instantly recognized it. Where did you find this? Hiruzen asked with a serious tone. I found it in the forest. There were 4 bodies, all of them mutilated by what looks like a special type of weapon. I saw the mask but did not recognize it as a standard ANBU mask. Anko reported. Is there anything else, Anko? Hiruzen asked. That's all, Hokage-sama. Anko answered. I want you to get checked out, Anko, and your team can rest until the end of the stage. You and your group are not to speak of this. Am I clear? He asked. Hi, Hokage-sama. They all said. He nodded and made his way out of the office. Once he was gone, everyone released a sigh of relief. I don't think I've seen Sensei that angry. Naruto said. Yeah, and I feel sorry for the poor bastard that gained his wrath. Anko said. She looked at her team and asked if they wanted to get something to eat. She led them to the cafeteria. Orochimaru was waiting for the arrival of Midoshi. He did have to wait long as she appeared from the shadows. In the same room with him were Kabuto, his teammates, Guren and her team. Once she was there, he stood up straight and faced them. First things first, Kabuto, how is my new body? Orochimaru said. He's still out of it, but it looks like he will survive the process. His teammates are watching over him and the Oto team is waiting to attack in the morning. However, I'm worried about the pale-skinned boy. He seems much too skilled for a genin. Kabuto said. He belongs to Danzo. I can tell that he has been through the training. He will be of little consequence. He then turned to Guren and her team. However, the attacks on you and your team do bother me. Orochimaru said. I wouldn't worry about Orochimaru. We came out of it fine and showed whoever sent those men that we are not to be messed with. Midoshi said. This is no time for your arrogant child. You are just lucky that Danzo did not send any of his elite shinobi. Orochimaru said with a tone. Be careful who you speak to, Orochimaru. I care not what you do with your petty little revenge against your sensei, but if you try anything to stop me from getting what I want, I will make you pay. Midoshi threatens with a dangerous tone. Your obsession with the Kyuubi child is getting to be troublesome. Orochimaru snarled. Orochimaru-sama, perhaps you should allow this to continue. Giran said. Orochimaru snapped his gaze at her. She flinched but remained calm. We did not come all this way just to get scared of this Danzo. We have proven that his men are not so dangerous, and even if he sent his elite, there would be no challenge against us if we work together. To pull out now will give the Hokage reason to investigate. We are still able to move around thanks to the rules of the exams. We must be cautious. Orochimaru calmed down and let out a sigh. He turned to Kabuto and his team. Return to the forest and continue to watch over Sasuke-kun's team. Orochimaru ordered. They nodded and vanished. Orochimaru looked at Midoshi and would have already begun to leave. Her team was following her, as was Giran. He glared at the back of the child and did not like the type of power she held. He could do nothing, however, against the little upstart. If he did, then he would be the enemy of the Hibi clan and they would do everything in their power to destroy him. For now, he would let her live. Another thing that he was concerned about was what that seal he saw on Anko's mark. There were very few seals that could contain the power of his Juin, curse mark. Whatever this seal was completely cut him off from the seal that he placed. While Anko's Juin was an old design, it was still troubling that it could be done. Not even Jiraiya found a way to do that. Whoever this was had very good skills and could become a huge problem should he or she get a hold of Sasuke. He would keep an eye out for whoever this Fuinjutsu user was and he would eliminate them before they got to his prize. Hiruzen made his way toward the council room where he called an emergency meeting. He did not show his anger, but it could be felt by the two ANBU who were escorting him. He reached and entered the room where the elders and clan heads were waiting. A representative of the civilian council was there as Hiruzen made it clear that they had no reason to be there. He stood in front of them with a serious expression. I thank you for coming on such short notice. I assure you that it is important that you are here tonight. Before we begin, I would like to speak to you, Danzo. Hiruzen said. What do you? Was all he got out before he was grabbed by the neck and slammed down onto the table. He was choking a bit as Hiruzen had his hand around his throat. He was very surprised at the look of rage on his face, as were the other two elders. However, they could do nothing as they saw the two ANBU members right behind them, their hands on their blades. Danzo looked back at Hiruzen with a glare of his own. What do you think that you're doing? He choked out. You will be silent, Danzo, as you have forgotten your place. Did I give you orders to confront that girl? I told you that nothing could be done as she is a part of the exams, but you decided to go and disobey me. Let me be clear so that this does not happen again. I am the Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato, and if I must kill you and rip your roots from out the ground just to make my point, then I will. You will remember that, Danzo, or I will show you why I am called Shinobi no Kami, God of Shinobi. Am I clear? Hiruzen said with a tone. Yes. Hokage-sama, Danzo gasped. Hiruzen released him and Danzo was immediately attempting to get his breath back. The two former friends looked at each other with nothing but contempt. Danzo broke his gaze and sat down on his seat. Hiruzen made his way to his seat and sat down. Everyone in the room stayed silent and waited for the shinobi on Kami to speak. When he did, the meeting got on its way. It was now the second day of the exams. Naruto decided to check out the tower while Jacken went back to sharpen his weapon and Yakumo went to meditate. As he walked around, he met Kurenai's team and met the two members of the Suna team. He sent his hellos and continued his trek around the tower. He wondered if anyone else was in the tower. As he turned the corner, he came to an area that was pretty open and close to where the Jonin and Chunin were staying. He stood in the area and waited. When a few moments passed, he decided to call out whoever was following him. "It's time to come out now. While you did a good job in the beginning, you're leaking your killer intent, which allowed me to sense you," Naruto called out. That's when his stalker stepped out. It was the redhead of the Sun team, Gaara. Naruto cursed his luck but faced Gaara. "So, what can I do for you? I want to know what makes you so interested in that girl that she would dare to threaten me. I see nothing about you that would make you dangerous. You are weak and I see no threat from you," Gaara said. "Gee, don't I feel special in your eyes? I guess that you're talking about Midoshi. I don't know what her interest is in me, but a more important question, or rather questions, is when did you meet Midoshi and when did you cross paths?" Naruto asked. Now, those are questions that you shouldn't be able to ask," a female voice said. Midoshi appeared from behind a column and was standing with the two. She faced Gaara and glared at him. "You should keep your mouth shut, sand rat. I don't care about your crazy mother or whatever you call that thing inside you, but you better keep your mouth shut or I will shut it for you. You would dare." Gaara growled and removed his cork to his gourd. I would be careful. There's a reason why Naruto-kun led you here. You wouldn't want the Jonin and Chunin to come out and deal with you?" Midoshi said. Gaara snarled but did not attack. Midoshi just sighed at his face. "It's such a task to control such a rabid beast, don't you agree with Naruto-kun?" "I'm not even touching that comment, Midoshi. I am curious about why you're here. It can't just be because of your curiosity," Naruto stated. "Oh, but it is. I don't have an agenda other than satisfying my curiosity. I mean, student of the Sandaime Hokage, student of Jiraiya the Gamma Sennin, Toad Hermit, student of Mitarashi Anko and Jinchuriki of the Kyubi. You have such a wonderful resume and I want to see it match up. I'm especially excited to see how much better you have become with that wonderful chakra you hold at bay," Midoshi said. "You can forget Midoshi. Even if we do fight, I won't use that chakra just to satisfy your lust for battle," Naruto exclaimed. "So you say, but you know that I am just as skilled and I have been trained just as well as you have. You may not have a choice and I have all the time in the world to find your triggers," Midoshi said with a smile. Naruto just narrowed his eyes on her. Gaara was a little pissed at being ignored, but he did look at Naruto in a new light. "So you carry one just like me? Yet, why do you not have the same eyes as me?" Gaara asked. "He's nothing like you," Midoshi hissed, surprising Naruto. "He's better. Do not forget Gaara, he is my prey. You do not want to test me." Gaara just glared at her. "I swear, by the end of this, I will kill you both," Gaara said. He then left the area via Shunshin. "Filthy animal," Midoshi snarled. She turned her focus back to Naruto. "The same goes for you, Naruto. You're my prey and no one else can have you." She turned away and left the area as well. Naruto just sighed and wondered when he got so popular. He decided to go back to his room, having enough of today's exploration. The rest of the exam came and went. Everyone who managed to get into the tower was standing in front of the Hokage. Naruto listened to the old man, but he surveyed the competition that was around him. It looked like the rest of the rookies passed the second part of the exam, but they came around the last day. His team, Midoshi's team, Kurenai's team and the Suna team were pretty well rested. Another team that came in before the deadline was Guy's team. The other Oto team came in with the last two rookie teams and so did Kabuto's team. That added up to 9 teams. Naruto had just finished listening to the Hokage's speech, which was interrupted by Yugao's boyfriend, Gekko Hayate. The guy still looked pretty sick as he remembered. The man explained that since there are still too many competitors, the preliminaries had to be held. That's when a screen came down from above and Hayate explained that the matches would be random. He asked if anyone wanted to quit and Kabuto was the only one to do so. He watched as Ibiki watched him as he left and signaled 2 people to silently follow him. It meant that their suspicions were on the mark. He forgot about Kabuto and focused on what was about to happen. The preliminary matches of the exams were about to begin. A digital board came down from the ceiling. It hovered over them and began to run through the names. It landed on 2 names. One was Uchiha Sasuke and his opponent was Kajiro. Alright, everyone but these 2, please leave the floor and go onto the balconies. Hayate ordered. As everyone made their way to the upper level, Kakashi appeared next to Sasuke. He leaned down and whispered into his ear. I know about that mark on your shoulder. If you decide to use it, then you will be disqualified and we will seal that mark up immediately. Kakashi said. What? Why? Sasuke hissed. Kakashi squeezed his shoulder and Sasuke winced. Do not argue with me, Sasuke. It was me who got the Hokage to allow you to compete, much to everyone's disagreement. You will not use that mark or I will take you out of the match right now. Kakashi said with seriousness. Sasuke just nodded but he was not happy with the decision. Kakashi released him and made his way to the balcony. Sasuke didn't know what the problem was with the mark he received. It gave him the power that he was looking for. It was such a rush to use. Whatever, Sasuke thought. He looked across to his opponent and smirked. This guy doesn't look like much. Are you ready? Hayate asked Sasuke. The boy nodded with a grin. He looked at Kajiro and asked the same question. Kajiro grunted and prepared. Then begin. In a flash, Kajiro was in front of Sasuke, which surprised him. He felt a sting to his jaw and took some steps back. He was then struck from the side. He was hit from all angles before being sent flying with a spin kick. Sasuke was able to flip and land on his feet and looked back at Kajiro. The ugly teen stood there without any expression. He didn't know what the hell was going on. He activated his Sharingan and did some hand seals. Katan, Gokakyu no Jutsu. Fire release, great fireball technique, Sasuke shouted and fired a fireball at him. She suddenly disappeared and the fireball hit the wall. Sasuke was looking around for his opponent when he was cut from behind. He whipped out a kunai and swung it but hit the air. He was then cut again and he hit nothing but air again. Sasuke realized that she was attacking from below and used his chakra to jump high into the air. Kajiro stuck his head out and Sasuke was preparing another Katan jutsu. Kajiro beat him to it and called out his attack. Katan, Kasumi en Byu no Jutsu. Fire release, mist blaze dance technique, he said softly. He blew out a cloud of mist that surrounded Sasuke. Sasuke fired his Gokakyu again but that ignited the mist and was caught in a blinding firestorm. On the balcony, Midoshi looked at the fight with a raised eyebrow. She turned her attention to Guren. You've trained her well, Guren. She has turned into one hell of an assassin. Midoshi said. She had the make of it. I've also helped her with her true form. I dare say that she could be a challenge for Erasure. Guren said. They turned back to the fight as the fire cleared. Sasuke hit the ground hard and groaned in pain. He had some burns on his body and his clothes. He struggled to his feet and focused his Sharingan around the arena. Suddenly, a mist appeared. Sasuke refrained from using any more Katan jutsu. What is wrong, little brother? A voice said. Sasuke's eyes widened and looked around in the mist. Suddenly, a figure appeared and Sasuke was shocked. Standing before him was his elder brother, Uchiha Itachi. Every adult from Konoha was surprised by this. Sasuke looked at the man before him and growled. Everyone could feel an evil power coming off Sasuke. He looked at the man with white-hot rage and his chakra was starting to become visible. Kakashi and Enko watched as the mark began to glow and Kakashi was prepared to end the match right there. That's when Sasuke did some hand seals, making Itachi's eyes widen. Katan, Ryuka no Jutsu. Fire release, dragon fire technique, Sasuke roared. Everyone had to cover their eyes and get away from the edge as the ground was ignited in a brilliant orange flame. After a few moments the fire died down and there was nothing but smoke. Suddenly, something came flying out of the smoke. It was Kajuro and she was no longer in disguise. She was in pain as she was hit by something with force. That's when Sasuke appeared behind her. She tried to turn but was struck by a vicious back fist. This was followed up by a crescent kick and a straight punch. He ended the combo with an axe to her gut. Because the last attack connected when she hit the ground, the attack was doubled. Kajuro gasped in pain as the smoke cleared. However, Sasuke wasn't even done. His Sharingan was blazing and there was nothing but hate in them. He grabbed Kajuro by the throat and slammed her down. Pulling out a kunai, he roared as he was about to bring it down onto her head. Suddenly he was thrown into the wall with incredible force. He shook the cobwebs loose and wondered who had done that to him. When he looked forward, he saw the deadly eyes of Midoshi whose sword was being held back by Hayate. Kakashi arrived and slapped his hand down on Sasuke's shoulder. The look he gave him was not one of praise. In fact, he got a look around and saw that everybody on the Konoha side was looking at him as if he was some sort of monster. Midoshi stopped her struggle and held her sword to her side. Kotoheim and Guren were helping Kajuro up and checking her over. Midoshi was not amused and showed it by unleashing her killer intent on Sasuke that forced him to his knees. It only lasted a second before Midoshi turned back to her team. Hayate let out a sigh of relief before speaking. "Winner of the first match, Uchiha Sasuke," he said. Kakashi took that as his signal and left with Sasuke in tow. Everyone else was looking at the burnt grounds with fear and confusion. Midoshi gently placed Kajuro on the wall and watched over her. She looked to see a pleased look on Orochimaru's face and narrowed her eyes on him. She forgot him and dealt with Kajuro. Across the way, Anko and her team looked over at Midoshi and her team. "I think the Hokage and Kakashi need to put extra security on that boy." "You saw it right?" she asked her team. "It was too fast to see. If Hayate didn't react, Sasuke would be without a head right now." Jacken said. "Man, I do not want to be Sasuke right now. I mean, if Midoshi wants something done, she's going to get it done." Naruto said. "Are we discussing this because she wants to take you away and have her way with you?" Jacken said. "Why are you insisting that's what she wants to do?" Yakumo asked with an annoyed tone. "I'm not saying anything that isn't true. She was flirting with him at the academy and she defended him from Gaara. Other than wanting to beat Naruto in a fight, she could be attracted to him." Jacken argued. Yakumo just shook her head and Naruto glared at Anko. "I blame you for this." Naruto said. "What did I do?" Anko asked with mock surprise. "If you didn't read that stupid book in front of us, he wouldn't get these ideas." Naruto answered. "Hey, just because there might be a grain of truth in what he's saying does not mean that my reading is the reason. Besides, that book is not stupid. It is a work of art." Anko argued. "It's smut, plain and simple," Yakumo said. The team continued to argue, ignoring the next two opponents, Aburame Shino versus Akato Yoroi. Yoroi faced Shino. Hayate asked if they were ready and started the match. Yoroi attacked immediately and closed the distance between the two. Shino tried to get some distance but the older man was faster than Shino believed. He was suddenly grabbed and slammed into the ground. His hand began to glow as Shino attempted to get his hand off him. Yoroi smirked and decided to let him know what was happening. "I wouldn't keep trying, kid. It will only make this harder for you." As you're probably noticing, I'm draining you of your chakra. Soon, this will all be over. Yoroi boasted. That was a very unwise thing to say. Came Shino's monotone voice. Yoroi whipped around to see Shino standing behind him. That's when he felt his chakra leave him and something crawling up his arm. He turned to see a bunch of bugs crawling up his arm. Yoroi screamed and attempted to get the bugs off him. Shino used this time to attack. He slammed his leg into Yoroi's side and sent him flying. Yoroi flipped to his feet but noticed that he was surrounded by Shino's bugs. Yoroi growled and made a move to attack Shino. Shino just stood there and allowed Yoroi's attack to connect. Again, Shino dissolved into bugs and crawled up Yoroi's body. Yoroi began to flail around and stomped on some bugs. The rest of Shino's bugs attacked and swarmed him in seconds. Yoroi was now in a cocoon of bugs. His struggling reduced until it seemed that Yoroi was no longer moving. Shino called his bugs back to him and everyone watched as they retreated back into his clothes. Yoroi was on the ground and not moving. Hay-8 called the match. Winner of the second match, Aburame Shino. Shino walked back to his team. Niji, who had his Byakugan activated, was surprised by what he was seeing. He has a whole bunch of them within his body. They are feeding off his chakra. Niji said. Wow, that's kind of creepy. Tenten said. The board circled again and two more names appeared. They were Haruno Sakura and Temari. Sakura made her way down to the arena floor as did Temari. Everyone was watching this with worry. Not to be a wet blanket, but we should be prepared to cut in just in case that Sunakunoichi goes too far. Naruto said. Lee looked at him with some disappointment. Naruto, why are you dismissing the lovely Sakura's youthful fires? She has blossomed into a beautiful rose during her time in the forest. Lee said. Naruto looked at Lee owlishly. He looked to everyone around him for some type of translation but he didn't get any. Well, we've run into these Suna ninja before. I do not doubt Sakura, but if the redhead is vicious, what makes you think that she isn't too? We should just be ready to interfere if she goes too far. Naruto explained slowly. Lee looked at him with acknowledgement and gave him a grin with a thumb up. Naruto just shook his head and made a note to look into Madogai using drugs to influence young men. Sakura looked across the arena and carefully looked at her opponent. Seeing her pull her fan out, she deduced that she was a long-range fighter. She needed to get close and she would dominate the fight. She just needed to distract her. When the match began, Sakura rushed forward and threw some shuriken. Temari just smirked and unfolded her fan, showing one moon. She swung her weapon and deflected the projectiles. Sakura did some hand seals and created some clones. Each clone moved to surround her. Seriously? Temari asked no one and swung her fan in an arc. This created a tornado that surrounded Temari and blasted the real Sakura away while dispelling her clones. Sakura struggled to stand and faced Temari, who looked at her with a mocking expression. How did you survive so long? Your skills are so pathetic. Did you really think that you could distract me with regular clones? You know what? I'm not even going to waste my time with you. Let's just finish this. Temari completely unfurled her fan and gave Sakura a sinister grin. Kamaitashi no Jutsu. Sickle Weasel Technique, Temari called out and swung her fan. The swing created a tornado that swept Sakura up. She began to scream as wind blades began to cut into her. The jutsu continued for quite a while but ended suddenly. Sakura began to descend and Temari was right under her. Everyone saw her smirk and raised her fan. As people got ready to stop her, Sakura was caught by her sensei. Temari was a little shocked and suddenly felt a small chill run up her back when his lone eye looked at her. She backed up and folded her fan up. Kakashi just looked at Hay-8 and nodded. Hay-8 nodded as well and ended the match. Winner of the third match, Temari. Height announced. Temari walked back to her side, knowing that everyone was glaring at her. Kakashi laid Sakura down and began to wrap his student's wounds. Anko walked over to him. She gave him a look and Kakashi looked at her. There was a silent discussion between the two. Anko made a motion toward Naruto and Kakashi made a small nod. Anko nodded as well and turned her attention to the arena. The board began to light up again. When it landed on two names, Naruto was very interested in it. It would be Midoshi versus Kinyuta Dosu. Author's notes: I just realized that there was going to be 13 matches that I was going to do. After making the matches, I kept one the same from the story, but it is going to be very different from the original plot. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this new chapter. Midoshi walked down slowly as Dosu jumped over the railing. It took a while before Midoshi was standing in front of the bandaged-faced boy. Midoshi did not have a smile on her face and folded her arms in annoyance. Dosu pulled back his sleeve to show the gauntlet on his arm. Before the match could begin, Dosu had some choice words for the young girl. Are you still upset about that weak girl that nearly got killed? You are pathetic. To think, I used to fear you because of your cruelty. Now I see that you are too sentimental for your own good. I shall show you and prove to your keeper that I am more than just a pawn. Dosu said. After that was said, Height started the match. Dosu got 2 steps before a sword blade was sticking out of his head. His lone eye was wide with surprise. Midoshi said nothing as she pulled the blade out. Dosu hit the ground with a thud. His blood began to pour out of his head. Midoshi flicked the blood and brain matter off before putting her blade away. She walked back to the balcony, ignoring everyone's eyes. As she walked past the sensei of Dosu's team, she could feel the anger coming off him. She ignored it and walked back to her team. She looked to see that Kajuro was now awake. How are you feeling? Midoshi asked. I will heal. Kajuro said gruffly. I'm sorry that I failed you, Midoshi-sama. Midoshi bent down to her and placed her hand on her head. You have nothing to be ashamed of. It just means that Guren should have trained you better. Midoshi said with a smirk. You're blaming me. Why, you little. Guren began to rant and Midoshi didn't even look like she was listening. Everyone looked at the group with critical eyes. After they cleaned up the blood and took away the body, the board cycled again and the next 2 names were given. They were Kurama Yakumo and Yamanaka Ino. Kurenai was paying very close attention to this match. She wanted to see how far Yakumo had come since her graduation. She had attempted to see the teenager but she was not willing to speak with her. Kurenai always regretted leaving the girl after that situation. She remembered when she was given another chance before she was placed in the academy but she had refused her harshly. When she became a part of Anko's team, she asked her friend if she could set up a meeting. The young teen was sharp and figured it out, refusing to meet with her. Anko did promise that she would look out for her. She looked at the ground and waited for the match to begin. 5th match, Yamanaka Ino vs Kurama Yakumo, begins. Height called out. Ino moved quickly to take out Yakumo. The Kurama heiress quickly did some hand seals and waited. Ino threw a kick that connected at her side. Ino was surprised when Yakumo burst into leaves. Ino screamed and swatted the leaves out of her face. That proved to be a mistake as Yakumo quickly struck Ino with 5 knife hand strikes. Ino felt her arm go numb before she was blasted with a spin kick. Ino hit the ground but was quickly to her feet. However, Yakumo had already finished preparing a jutsu. Megan, Narakumi no Jutsu. Demonic illusion, hell viewing technique, she said and vanished. As Ino got the feeling back into his arm, she went wide-eyed at the scene that was in her face. She saw Sasuke and Sakura looking at each other with love in their eyes. They were slowly getting closer and their eyes closed. She could see blushes on their cheeks and their lips pucker. Ino was horrified and quickly closed her eyes. She placed her hands in a seal. Genjutsu Kai. Illusion technique dissipation, Ino shouted. When she opened them, she was greeted with a fist that sent her tumbling. Yakumo pressed her advantage and hit Ino from different angles, disabling her arms again. She caught Ino in the chin with a kick when she did a backflip. Ino skid to a stop. She got to her knees and wiped her mouth. She watched as Yakumo geared herself up for another round. Ino was searching for an answer and fast. Her arms were getting over the numbness and Yakumo was about to charge at her again. She pulled out some shuriken and threw it at Yakumo. Yakumo quickly threw some shuriken of her own and knocked Ino's out of the air. They continued their path, forcing Ino to roll out of the way. She was on her feet and threw another set of shuriken. Yakumo knocked the shuriken with ease and charged at Ino. Ino put her hands up to use her clan's Shintenshin no Jutsu, mind-body switch technique. Yakumo saw this and vanished. Ino looked around but was struck from behind. She was hit again from all sides and sent flying. Ino got to her feet and was quickly looking for her opponent. She truly needed to do something and something fast. Quickly thinking of something, Ino quickly cut her hair with a kunai. She threw the hair around and slammed her hands to the ground. She focused her chakra through the hair and waited. Her patience paid off as Yakumo suddenly appeared. She was trying to move but she couldn't. Ino saw this as her chance and did her seal. Shintenshin no Jutsu. Ino called out. Ino hit the ground and Yakumo went stiff. As she looked around the mind, she attempted to gain control of her opponent and make her forfeit. Suddenly, she felt something behind her and turned to see something scary. It looked like a monster with sharp fangs and teeth. Ino was frozen stiff as the monster closed in on her. She was suddenly grabbed and thrown through a black hole. Back on the outside, Ino quickly opened her eyes and scrambled to get away. Yakumo shook the cobwebs. She looked at the blonde and could see the fear in her eyes. What the hell was that? Ino demanded. That was the curse of the Kurama clan. I would think that a Yamanaka would be advised of such dangerous things. No matter, it's time to finish this. Yakumo said and did some hand seals. In an instant, Ino was caught in another genjutsu and was unable to move. Yakumo did another genjutsu, which showed Ino the image of the Ito coming after her. Ino screamed and immediately surrendered. Winner of the fifth match, Kurama Yakumo. Hayate said. Yakumo dispelled her genjutsu and freed Ino. The blonde quickly made her way back to her side, eager to get away from the teenager. Yakumo felt a little bad about that but she suddenly felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Anko and she gave the young woman a grin and a thumbs up. She looked to see her teammates giving her congratulations as well. This made her feel a little better and she retreated to join her team. Kurenai watched her and was very glad that Yakumo had succeeded. She then felt a little sad that she was not the reason for Yakumo's growth. Guilt crept into her mind as she gave up on the girl because of her failure as an instructor. Anko, while a very good friend, did not give up like she did and produced a very skilled and dangerous kunoichi. Despite her insecurities, she was very happy for her former student and wished her well in the finals. The board cycled again and two more names popped up. It was Rock Lee versus Inuzuka Kiba. Yahoo, let's get ready Akamaru. Kiba cheered. The small white puppy cheered and the two jumped down to the ground. Yash, it is time for my youth to shine. Lee exclaimed and did the same. The two landed and walked up to each other. Hayate saw that the two were ready and started the match. They jumped back and got into their respective stance. Kiba. Take this boy seriously. Kurenai ordered. Kiba saw the look on his sensei and did not want to face the consequences if he disobeyed. Alright Akamaru, let's get started. Kiba said and threw a small pill to the dog. He ate it and everyone watched as his fur turned red. Kiba got low and put his hands into a seal. Shikyaku no Jutsu. For legs technique, Kiba called out. He took a more animal-like appearance and growled at Lee. Akamaru then jumped onto his back and barked. Kiba made another seal. Jujin Bunshin. Beast human clone. With a puff of smoke, Akamaru changed into his partner, looking just like him. Instead of concern on the face of Lee, the large eyebrow guy looked happy about it. What a splendid challenge. Lee cheered. Heh, let's see if you'll be smiling after we tear you apart. Kiba said. The two charged at him with amazing speed. They closed the distance between them pretty quickly and attacked. However, instead of connecting their attacks, Lee dodged them with ease. Kiba was not deterred and with Akamaru, attacked Lee with ferocity. Lee ducked and dodged the two-man attack without too much trouble. He decided to stop dodging and return the favor. He ducked under a claw strike and landed a crushing blow to Kiba that sent him flying. Akamaru attempted to hit him from behind but Lee batted the attack down and quickly swept his feet from under him. Akamaru tumbled into Kiba as Lee got back into his stance. Surely, you can do better than that. My flames have not been stroked enough. Lee said. Kiba and Akamaru growled. Oh, I'll stroke your flames. Kiba growled and charged at him with Akamaru. Kiba took out two black balls and threw them toward the ground. A black smoke appeared and blinded Lee. Lee was looking around until he was struck multiple times from within the smoke. Lee ran out of the smoke to be ambushed by Kiba and Akamaru. As their claws were about to slam down on him, Lee vanished. They were looking around for the teen when they caught a whiff of his scent. They ran after him and attacked him from each side. Getsuga. Fong passing Fong, the two spun, forming two drill-like tornadoes. As they descended on Lee, the boy vanished again. The two drills ripped apart the ground that he was standing on. Using their superior sense of smell, they were able to find Lee as he reappeared. They turned and came at him again. Lee just disappeared and appeared again as the attack neared and appeared on the statue. Kiba and Akamaru stopped spinning and looked at the spandex-wearing ninja. Lee looked a little disappointed. Is that all you have? I wanted to have a challenge so that I can show Gai-sensei how far I've come. Lee commented. The comment angered Kiba and he and Akamaru prepared to attack again. This time, Lee attacked him seriously. He threw a kunai with amazing speed that forced the two to split up. He reappeared in front of one of the Kibas. Dynamiku and Tori. Dynamic entry, Lee said. The power behind the kick sent Kiba toward the wall with some force. He hit the wall hard, creating spider web cracks, and then hit the ground. Smoke covered him and Akamaru had returned to his normal form. Akamaru! Kiba shouted. Because he took his eyes off him, Lee was right there, in his space. Konoha Senpu. Tree leaf whirlwind, Lee called out. Kiba saw the first kick high and prepared to block, but it switched in mid-air and caught Kiba in the chest. Lee continued with a series of high and low kicks that had Kiba reeling. When it was over, Kiba was on the ground and not moving. Winner of the sixth match, Rock Lee. Hayate said. Rock Lee didn't feel like celebrating as he didn't feel like he was challenged enough. He just shrugged it off and vowed that he will have a challenge worthy of his flames of youth. As he returned to his team, he saw Naruto and Yakumo there to greet him. Holy crap man, I didn't know that you were that fast. I know about your condition, so how did you do it? Naruto asked. It's all thanks to Gai-sensei. Through hard work and my ever-growing flames, I have become the Konoha no Atsukushiki Aoi Yaju, Konoha's beautiful green wild beast, that you see before you. Lee said. Yakumo just sighed at him. Why is it that you cannot talk like a normal person? She then turned to face Tenten and Niji. And you too, why didn't you stop your sensei's brainwashing of Lee? Yakumo demanded. Look Yakumo, it was either we left him to Gai-sensei or we all would be wearing that spandex. Tenten commented. A sacrifice had to be made. Niji added. Yakumo looked at Lee's outfit. Well, I guess I can understand, but still. Yakumo began on another tirade. Naruto just chuckled while Anko and Kakashi dealt with a dejected Guy and Lee. Jacken just shook his head and looked at the board. The 7th match had been made. It would be Tsurugi Misumi versus Kotoheim. The two fighters stared at each other. Kotoheim had a very disgusted look on her face at the look that Misumi gave her. It was a very perverted look and she did not like it one bit. While she knew that this man was actually a spy for Orochimaru, it did not mean that he could just look at her like a piece of meat. She looked at Midoshi and waited for something. After a while, Midoshi made a slitting motion with her thumb across her neck. Kotoheim turned back with a smile. She readied herself to do what she must to him. Hayate looked at the two and saw that they were ready. 7th match, Tsurugi Misumi vs Kotoheim of the Fuma clan, begins. Author's notes, what's up, here's a new chapter. I know Midoshi is a little out of character, caring for her teammates when they are just a means to an end, but I wanted to give her a bit of a human side. She's still the coy, vindictive, scary girl that only wants to fight Naruto in an ultimate battle, but she has grown to respect and like her team. Anyway, enjoy the new chapter. Misumi charged at Kotoheim, who was doing some hand seals. Her hair wrapped around her in a protective cocoon. Misumi grabbed her and began to wrap around her. Everyone who was watching was a little put off by the ability that he was showing. Anko was the only one who had her eyes narrowed. She didn't know how, but this guy knew something that he shouldn't. The technique he was using was the Nan no Kaizo, soft physique modification, and it was an ability of her former master. She made a quick motion to the Hokage, who nodded. Back on the ground, Misumi was chuckling and bragging about the situation. He was tightening his hold on the girl. That hair of yours would not help you. Perhaps if you allow me to get a feel, then I might be persuaded to let you advance. What do you think, huh? Misumi asked with a perverted tone. How about you die instead? Kotoheim said. Misumi suddenly gasped as he felt several knives punch through his midsection. He quickly released Kotoheim, who then landed a kick to his wounded area. He hit the ground with a groan and struggled to stop the bleeding. Kotoheim turned to him and gave him a sinister grin. She stabbed her hair into the ground and did some hand seals. The hair then charged at Misumi, creating large spikes that came out of the ground. Misumi was white with fear as he could not move. As the attack closed in, Misumi was saved by Hayate before he could get skewered. Kotoheim was angered and confused by what the sick-looking man had done. He looked at her with a serious gaze. He was unable to continue. While killing is allowed, it is not done willingly. This match is over. Kotoheim of the Fuma clan is the winner of the 7th match. Hayate informed me. Kotoheim's hair returned to normal, but she was unhappy about not finishing the pervert. She hoped that she would get another chance in the future. The medic rushed Misumi out, but Orochimaru could see that they were not normal medics. He cursed Misumi for his carelessness. He figured that Anko had noticed his ability and linked it to him. He was also very angry with Guren's team. He watched as they congratulated Kotoheim on her win. He would need to do something about this soon. The board cycled again and two names popped up. It was Niji and Hinata. This caused a lot of people to look at the matchup with worry. Niji didn't say anything and made his way down to the stadium floor. As he made his way down, he remembered a conversation that he had with opponent. Flashback. Niji had returned from a joint training exercise with Team Anko. His mind was heavy with thoughts because of the discussion he had with Naruto. He had come to respect the blonde despite their different views. During the exercise, he had asked about the seal on his head. He said that he had an interest in Fuinjutsu and was interested. Niji told him all about the seal and what it does. Naruto was disgusted with the head family's use of the seal, but it also explained a lot about Niji's hatred. However, this spurred another question from the blonde that stuck. He asked him why he lumps his cousin with the others. He further explained himself by telling him that many of the Hyuga clan were pricks but Hinata was not. He commented that she was too shy to actually be a Hyuga. Niji told him about what happened to his father and what led to his death. Naruto countered by saying that she was 3. It turned into an argument, but Naruto then came up with a challenge for him. He asked him to actually ask Hinata what she thought about the seal. He took the challenge, assuming the answer. As he entered, he saw her walking somewhere. He quickly walked up to her, startling her. "En Niji Nissen, what can I do for you?" Hinata asked. "Come with me," he commanded. Hinata just nodded and followed Niji to the training hall. Once there, he turned to face her. "I want to know what you think of the seal," Niji said. What?" Hinata asked with shock. "I want to know your true thoughts. I never heard of you using it, but I know how the head family is. You may have others fooled, but my eyes can see through you. Now, tell me," Niji said in a demanding voice. Hinata was very nervous, but she gathered her courage and faced him. I hate the seal and all it represents," Hinata answered him. Niji bore into her, but he could not tell if she was lying. There was just no sense of deception. I know that you hate me because of what happened to your father, and for that, I am truly sorry. You think that just because you say that you're sorry that it makes it any better? I have no father because of you," Niji roared. "And if I could take his place, then I would without pause," Hinata shouted, shocking Niji. "At least, father would look at me with some pride. I can't change the past, but I can change the future. I can try to make the Hyuga a true family," Hinata said. Niji looked at his cousin with shock and frustration. He balled his fists and tried to come up with something. Instead, he stormed off, making his way toward his room. Present. Since that talk, he had avoided her. He would at times spy on her and see her practice. She would pathetically continue even when she was tired. After a while, he began to begrudgingly respect her. Now, he would see if it would pay off. He looked across from him and saw Hinata. She was nervous and shaking. He sighed, gaining her attention. "Normally, I would just tell you that you have no chance, that destiny has named me the winner. However, that is not what I'm going to do. You will show me the depths of your resolve, Hinata-sama," Niji said. What do you mean?" Hinata asked with a little surprise. "You said that you want to make the Hyuga a true family, right? Let's see if you have the resolve to actually do that," Niji said. He slipped into his stance and prepared himself. "Show me, Hyuga Hinata, heiress to the clan, if you have the resolve to complete your objective." That statement must have done something to Hinata. She lost her nervousness gradually and did a seal. "Byakugan," she called out. Activating her dojutsu, she slipped into her stance as well. Niji activated his Byakugan as well. Hayate looked at the two and saw that the talk was over. "Hyuga Niji versus Hyuga Hinata, begin," Hayate said. The two charged at each other and began to throw blows. Using the Juken, gentle fist, their clan style, they both went at it. Everyone was in awe at the taijutsu skill that was being shown by the two. They would counter, parry and avoid each other's strikes, knowing that one hit could prove to be damaging. Niji was still holding back, but he was a little impressed with his cousin. He had seen her use the Juken and she was just awful at it. However, the girl must have found a way to suit it to her natural flexibility. He would not get a clean shot against her. After a great length of time, the two separated and faced each other. Hinata looked a little winded and so did he. He winced a little as during the exchange, Hinata managed to get a glancing blow on his side. Despite that, he had done much more to her. He decided to show her what he did and dropped his guard. Hinata saw this and attacked. Her palm landed but Niji didn't even flinch. He grabbed her wrist and pulled down her coat sleeve. There, she saw what he did. She was very surprised that Niji managed to shut off her chakra within that exchange. She tried to attack with the other arm but Niji caught it and cut the chakra off. He then hit her with a Juken strike to her midsection. Hinata flew back but was quick to her feet. She went back into the Juken stance before charging again. Niji dodged her strikes with ease before sending her flying with a two-hit combo that sent her to the ground again. Hinata stood again and attacked. Niji just looked at his cousin, seeing the determination in her eyes. He still held back and used minimal force against her but she would just keep getting up and coming at him. Niji decided that it was time to end this. He ducked under another attempt and got into a familiar stance. Hinata's eyes went wide. Hack Sanjuni Sho, 8 trigrams 32 palms, Niji said and attacked. Hinata tried to defend herself but she was struck with every palm that Niji unleashed. His final strikes sent her flying across the floor where she landed motionless. Niji sighed and relaxed himself. He turned to Hay-8 before taking his leave. Winner of the 8th match, Hay-8 began. W8, a meek voice shouted. Niji whipped her head around and looked on in shock at what he was seeing. Hinata was on her hands and knees but she was slowly pushing herself to her feet. He couldn't believe that she could still stand after that. Hinata pushed forward slowly toward Niji before gaining a quick stride. That stride turned into a dash. Hinata reared her hand back as she closed in. She roared as best as she could and struck Niji in the chest. While it had no chakra in it, Niji felt the blow. Hinata kept her hand there and was breathing very hard. She looked at Niji and would stare right back at her. They looked at each other for a while before Hinata pitched forward. Niji caught her and held her as she went limp. Before she went totally out, she said these words. "Have I changed? Niji-nisan?" she asked before passing out. Niji carefully laid her down and looked at her unconscious form. "You'll need to change some more, Hinata-sama. Lucky for you, I will be with you all the way," Niji said softly. He turned away and made his way back to his team. He heard Hay-8 declare him the winner but if he stayed just a little longer, he would have seen the smile that was on Hinata's face. After clearing Hinata from the floor, the board cycled again and 2 names appeared. Naruto was very interested in this match because Gaara was fighting. He felt very sorry for his opponent who had his arms in slings. He was wondering why this Zaku guy was competing with such an injury but if he did not forfeit, then he was a dead man. The two stood across from each other but Gaara was paying no attention to him. The redhead turned to him and looked at him with the promise of pain and death. Naruto looked back without fear. He then broke contact with him and started to glare at Midoshi. Even after the match started, Gaara kept glaring at the young girl. Midoshi just looked at him without interest, which seemed to anger him more. Tired of being ignored, Zaku removed his arm from one of the slings and charged forward. When he was close enough, pointed his hand at Gaara. "Zankaha!" Decapitating airwaves, Zaku shouted. A large blast of air exploded in Gaara's face. Zaku had a victorious smirk on his face until the smoke cleared. He was surprised to see Gaara's sand protected him from being blown away. Zaku growled as his attack could destroy stone. He jumped back a few feet and removed the other arm. He braced himself as he collected air into his hands. He pointed forward, his palms facing Gaara. Zankukyakua. Extreme decapitating airwaves, Zaku roared and fired his attack. Everyone had to block their eyes as the attack ripped the ground up and destroyed everything in its path, including the doors and wall behind it. When Zaku stopped his technique, there was a large trench in the ground. Zaku began to laugh and cheered for his victory. That's when he felt dust fall over him. He looked up to see a cloud of sand. It descended on him in a hurry and Zaku found himself wrapped up in a cocoon of sand. Gaara appeared, his hand held out. Sabaku Soso, Sand Waterfall Funeral, Gaara said and closed his hand into a fist. The sand convulsed and crushed Zaku. No one could hear his screams. Drips of bloody sand fell onto the ground. Gaara just looked at Midoshi and Naruto before returning to his team. Winner of the 9th match, Sabaka no Gaara. We will take a small break to repair the floor. Hayate said. As several people came to repair the floor and wall, Anko turned to Naruto. He seems very excited to kill you. Maybe you should step out and quit. Anko said. I don't think that would do anything. Even if I quit, he would still come after me. Don't worry about it, sensei, I won't be leaving this world until the old man's hat is mine. Naruto said. Anko chuckled and ruffled his hair. Across the way, Guren was having a similar conversation. I'm just saying, that boy is unstable. I know that you're strong but you might be biting off more than you can chew. Guren said. Are you actually concerned for me, Guren? Midoshi asked with amusement. You don't have to worry. That sand rat can't match me. He could glare all he wants but he will know that I am the apex predator between us. Whatever, I hope he kills you. Guren said. Love you too. And that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it and until next time. Later.